Okay, it's 6 o'clock. Good evening. I'll go ahead and call to order the May 22nd meeting of the Town of Berthoud Planning Commission. It is the tradition of the Planning Commission to start our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance, so if you would please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, we will now call the roll of the Berthoud Planning Commission.
Vice Chair Smith,
Here.
Commissioner Brody,
Here.
Secretary Semadalis,
Here.
Commissioner Sigmund,
Here.
Commissioner Hoffmans,
Here.
Commissioner Pond,
Here.
and Chair Anderson is absent. Madam Chair, if I would like to introduce, we do have Ton Hillenbrand, the Planning Manager staff here, Luke Sieber, who is the Town Engineering Review Manager, and then Aaron Smith, our Town Attorney, is also on Zoom.
Great, thank you very much. Okay. Let's turn to the May 8th meeting minutes. Are there any questions or changes that the commissioners have to the May 8th Planning Commission minutes?
I do not.
If not, then I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes.
I second.
And a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye, those nay, and any abstentions?
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Okay, the ayes have it. Okay, thank you, commissioners. We have two land use applications for public hearing tonight, one with multiple parts, so I will provide some procedural background before we dive in. The members of the Planning Commission are volunteers, and like many of you in the audience, we are residents of Berthoud. Our duty is to review application materials provided, hear public testimony, hear from the applicant, and then discuss the matters before us as they comply with the land use code review procedures. In doing so, please note that the code and other regulatory prescriptions provide certain criteria for approval that we must consider. As Anne introduced, we have staff in attendance tonight to provide us with presentations of the land use items, to lay out the criteria and parameters for approval, and to answer the commissioner's questions. Once the staff has completed their presentation, the applicant will be permitted to provide information about the application. After that presentation, the public hearing will be opened, and if you intend to speak during the public hearing tonight, please sign in on the sheet at the front of the room on the black table here. We gain insight from the information and viewpoints the public provides. Your input is welcomed and appreciated, and if you wish to speak tonight, you will be recognized by me. When you come to the lectern, please provide us with your name, spell any name so the record will accurately reflect your comments, and then provide your address. We ask that you keep your comments relevant to the matter being discussed, and we ask that you direct your comments to the members of the Planning Commission and not the applicants or other speakers. Each person will have 3 minutes to speak. As stated, tonight we have two land use applications to be heard. And to recap the process, note that staff will introduce each item, followed by a presentation, and then the applicant may make a presentation. After that presentation, the public hearing will be open. So we'll start land use item number 1. And will this be Ton or me? Okay, great. So Ton Hildebrand of the Berthoud Community Development Department will present the first land use item on our agenda. This item is the Farmstead Acres preliminary plat. And for our audience, note that the preliminary plat review is in the second stage of a 3-stage development process. The first stage was approval of the neighborhood master plan. So Ton Hildebrand, a senior planner in Berthoud's Community Development Department, will present the staff report on these issues, and I will turn it over to her.
Good evening, Planning Commission. Ton Hildebrand, again, Planning Manager. So before I jump into this agenda item, I just have a few things I'd like to point out. You did receive a packet of information this evening. So in that packet, as you likely saw on the very top, there's the agenda for this evening. And then there's two pieces of correspondence for item number 5 on the agenda, which would be the Farmstead Acres preliminary plat. And then you have one piece of correspondence for item number 6. And so I will address the items for Farmstead Acres, and then of course, Ann will address the items for item number 6. And then in addition to that, you also have a motion sheet, and that motion sheet should assist you when the time comes to make your motion on both of these items. And I believe that motion sheet is multiple pages. Okay, and so before I do jump into the item at hand, I quickly just want to provide the public hearing process for those individuals who are joining us this evening who may not have as much experience. And I realize that Chair Smith just went over this, but I'll go in a little more detail. So to begin off our introduction, we will do a staff presentation, and so that I will, and Ann will provide a presentation on each of the items. And it's generally covering the land use approval process, including review criteria. Then the applicant will provide a presentation, and that presentation will give a bit more detail about the actual application itself for the specifics, the details of the application. And then following the applicant presentation, Chair Smith, will open it up for public comment. That will be the public hearing component of the public hearing. And that will be an opportunity for anybody, as pointed out earlier, if you signed up, then you can make your comments on each of the different items. And generally, each individual who speaks will have 3 minutes to do so. And then once all public comment has been received, Chair Smith will close the public hearing portion, and we will move on then to discussion and vote by the Planning Commission. And then that's when they will consider the review criteria specific to each of the applications, and you'll make your motion then based upon that criteria. Okay. So moving on to the item of the evening, this is the Farmstead Acres project. The currently undeveloped 5.928 acre property is located approximately 560 feet west of the North Dorothy Drive and Remuda Road intersection. The subject property is currently zoned UR Urban Residential as well as SR Suburban Residential, and is envisioned as the suburban residential on the future land use contained within the comprehensive plan. The applicant is proposing preliminary plat approval to create 32 single-family attached lots, 5 single-family detached lots, and multiple outlots to accommodate a pocket park as well as trail connections. Farmstead Acres received Neighborhood Master Plan and Rezone approval in April of 2023. The approved Neighborhood Master Plan includes 37 total lots, so the 32 single-family attached and the 5 single-family detached lots. The Neighborhood Master Plan also includes a pocket park and trail connections, which are provided on the preliminary plat as those outlots. The approved Neighborhood Master Plan does contain one condition of approval. The condition states that the applicant shall develop a solution for the eastern border of the project, considering screening, aesthetics, and maintenance, such as snow removal. The project is proposing a 6-foot tall privacy fence with lattice detail along the entire eastern property line, as noted in the blue dashed line on the image on the screen, as well as a curb head inside the fence on the alley side. So the fence will provide privacy and screening, while the curb head will assist in protecting the fence from damage during snow plowing operations or by other vehicles. Snow will be stored on the applicant's lots, or the applicant lots, and will not spill over to the eastern lots with the fence being present. Landscaping was considered by the applicants, however, this was not logical due to site constraints. Staff feels or finds that the condition has been addressed. So the proposed preliminary plat is in substantial compliance with the approved Neighborhood Master Plan. The road network, lot configuration, density, and proposed open space areas are aligned with the previously approved plan. The 37 residential lots created with this plat meet the standards for the UR Urban Residential as well as the SR Suburban Residential districts. The preliminary plat, if approved, would allow the applicant to apply for a final plat that would formally subdivide or create this 37 residential lots and outlots that accommodate the pocket park and trail connections. Section 6 of the Town Development Code states that the town shall use the following review criteria as seen in your packet and on the screen, in addition to other applicable provisions of the code to evaluate the application. In order to approve a preliminary plat, the criteria must be met, and staff finds that the Farmstead Acres preliminary plat request meets the preliminary plat review criteria. Specific details, on the project are meeting those specific details are contained, within your staff report. But before we move on to the slides containing the motion, I would like to provide some new information staff recently received. So within the last 48 hours, staff received correspondence from an adjacent property owner, Ryan Bond, and his attorney, specifically a request to recommend denial of the Farmstead Acres preliminary plat. That letter was provided to you this evening in your packet. The recommendation for denial comes on the concern that Lot 2, as seen on your screen, does not have adequate access. The next few slides are intended to provide clarifying information related to the access concerns expressed by that in the letter. Also, before I move ahead, keep in mind that Mr. Bond may be here tonight, and if he and his team choose, they can provide testimony during the public hearing portion of this request, and I gather they could also address any questions. The Farmstead Acres minor subdivision, as seen on your screen, was approved in 2023 along with the Farmstead Acres Neighborhood Master Plan and Rezone. The minor subdivision created 4 lots. So this proposed request tonight applies to lots 3 and 4, which are in the blue, and lots 1 and 2 are owned by Mr. Bond, and so lot 2, Mr. Bond was the owner of the land at the time of the minor subdivision process. So he's been along throughout this development. The minor subdivision included an access easement across lot 1 to benefit lot 2, as outlined on the screen. So that's there up towards the upper right-hand corner. The easement provides lot 2 access to Highway 56 or Mountain Avenue. So there, in the letter, you received it this evening, there was reference to a 2008 dedicated access easement. And in that access easement, it provided access to lot 3. So that would be the image in the middle of your screen there. But it did not provide access across lot 3. So lot 3 is our current subject property that is Farmstead Acres that is seeking preliminary plat. So meaning this easement did not extend across lot 3 to provide access for lot 2. This current request for Farmstead Acres preliminary plat does not change access to lot 2. So the existing access easement across lot 1 remains in place. So lot 2 is not technically landlocked as suggested in the letter, as this easement exists to provide that access. Again, this serves as lot 2's primary access to Mountain Avenue. So in a follow-up conversation today with Ryan and the applicant for Farmstead Acres preliminary plat, the applicant has stated that they are willing to work with Mr. Bond to revise the preliminary plat and provide an access from lot 2 to Remuda. And I realize this is a lot of information, and so if you have questions along the way, please certainly interrupt me. So in a follow-up conversation, we already covered this. So while this, Farmstead Acres is willing, again, to provide or revise the preliminary plat to provide access to Remuda, which you see there, that is the image on the right-hand side of the screen. So that would be revised. The image on the left is showing the current preliminary plat that has been the subject of this request. So up until 48 hours ago, or even here just earlier today, that was the preliminary plat. So they are now considering the image on the right to provide that access. So that access would essentially move the pocket park and also change configuration of their drainage or stormwater management. So while this revision is a considerable change from the approved neighborhood master plan, staff is amenable to this revision. The addition of the new access does not increase the density of the development nor change the intensity of the proposed residential uses. And as I stated before, the proposed pocket park would remain, it would just simply be relocated. However, it is up to the Planning Commission to decide how to proceed and if this proposed change is considered a substantial change from the approved neighborhood master plan, and thereby what is the appropriate process moving forward. So on the screen before you, I have provided 4 potential motions. So and I will go ahead and read these motions into record. So the first motion would be that Planning Commission makes a motion to recommend approval of the Farmstead Acres preliminary plat to the Board of Trustees as originally presented. So that is not with the additional access. The second motion option would be that the Planning Commission makes a motion to recommend approval of the Farmstead Acres preliminary plat to the Board of Trustees with the following 2 conditions. 1, the applicant shall provide access to Lot 2 of the Farmstead Acres minor subdivision approved in 2023 through Lot 3 to the intersection of Farmstead Acres Way and Remuda Road. The park and open space and drainage facilities shall be provided on site, and the final plat submittal shall include these revisions. And 2, the applicant shall amend the Farmstead Acres minor subdivision plat, neighborhood master plan, and the zoning classification of the 2 impacted lots from what was approved in 2023 prior to submitting the final plat submittal. Motion number 3, Planning Commission makes a motion to continue the Farmstead Acres preliminary plat request to the next public hearing, which is July 10th, 2025. And motion number 4, Planning Commission makes a motion to recommend denial of the Farmstead Acres preliminary plat request to the Board of Trustees, and then you would need to provide reasoning based upon the review criteria. So those motions are all provided to you in your motion packet there. And I am certainly available to answer any questions throughout this process. So whether now or once we get a presentation from the applicant and hear from public testimony, we can certainly answer any questions that come up pertaining to access, this situation, or whatever it may be. So with that, do you have any immediate questions?
Commissioners, any questions?
Can you explain how the pocket park is gonna be reconfigured and and is it gonna be substantially the same size as what was there originally?
And if the number of units will change.
Yes, okay. So the pocket park, the expectation is that the pocket park would remain the same size. So what it was proposed at neighborhood master plan would need to be consistent with where it is currently. So as of right now, I believe, and of course, if you look directly to the right of the arrow, or to the left, I'm sorry, to the left of the arrow, I believe that is where the pocket park is. It's still on that corner. So instead of being completely centered, it's just off to the left. So then I believe that they will be losing a lot or 2, but I believe the applicant will be able to address that. Otherwise, I don't believe there's any additional change. So, and with this too, as you up here at the, before lot 2, you'll see that band of space. That is, I believe, where they are proposing, again, their stormwater. There was a detention pond previously, but it appears that the reasoning with the 1 condition of approval is that they would have to amend the neighborhood master plan, the minor subdivision plan, and the zoning classification is because all of their drainage, stormwater management needs to be contained on their own property. And therefore, that would warrant an amendment to the lot line. So between lot 3 and lot 2, they would need to do a lot line adjustment so that all that stormwater management is within this property. So that requires, as well as this could be considered a change to the neighborhood master plan. And so all of that needs to be reflected on the neighborhood master plan as well as the minor subdivision plat. But this also then impacts zoning, because we can't have just a small strip of their property be M1, which is the property to the north, and then their current designation. So it would need to clean that up. So it's pushing essentially the zone district a little bit, expanding it up.
What was the zoning to the north?
M1, which is light industrial.
And is the detention that's now proposed on that M1 just for Lot 3, or does it also benefit Lot 2?
Just for lot 3. So, and at any point in time, if lot 2 were to redevelop, if Mr. Bond were to come in and make an application, do a completely new development, stormwater management, detention, all that would be addressed in that application process for that property.
Is there an access to lot 2 off a mountain? Mountain, okay.
Yes, so there is, and here, I'll go back a slide. So here's Mountain Avenue or Highway 56 here.
Mhm.
This outlined in black is a dedicated access easement. It's 20 foot wide. It came with the original Farmstead Acres minor subdivision plat. So that then grants Lot 2 access to Mountain Avenue.
Okay. So they just want 2 ways.
Yeah, and so the access that is currently, Lot 2 has been taking access from what would be Remuda. They come across this property, Lot 3, into Lot 2, however, that's not legal access. There are no dedicated easements that protect that access, nor is it dedicated right away. Therefore, it's not technically legal. So they would need to go through a process such as this to legalize and define that access. So again, previously in 2008, there was an access easement dedication, which is what you see in this exhibit here in the middle. But that easement only included what was in that outlined red box. And so it didn't actually come here where the dotted lines are across Lot 3. That's actually not an easement, that's not access. That does not grant legal access.
You mentioned that the dedication in this one area was 2008. How long has this been used this way?
I suspect at least since that time, if not well before. There's no way of knowing, I'm not sure.
Is it possible, whether it would be legal or not, that homeowners in Lot 3 would end up using the access through Lot 2 to get to Mountain Avenue via that easement?
So I would suspect that would not be likely. Being that easement really is for access to Lot 2 and for the users of Lot 2. It's not dedicated right away like this would be a dedicated roadway. Additionally, and I believe that the applicants can discuss this in more detail, there are some constraints with that access, and where this came up is due to CDOT requirements and an access plan they have for Mountain Avenue, and limitations to how that access can be used moving forward, which creates challenges.
But there wouldn't be like a physical barrier preventing people from going up that way or anything?
I think it's potential if that's what CDOT would require. If CDOT said you now have to officially close this because you've changed the use of your property, there would likely be at least from Lot 2. So between Lot 2, of course, and Mountain Avenue on this is that small little building you see is Lot 1. And so that is a residential lot. So they would likely, there could be some ability that the residents would maintain access. I'm not sure, that's up to CDOT, but it's likely then that Lot 2, that access would be closed if they were to change their use. And that access, in my understanding, is currently defined as a residential access.
I have a question about, you mentioned the privacy fence, and I thought that was noted as a possible amendment to a motion. Is that something that would need to be included as a motion, or is that already?
No, so, sorry, for clarification,
Yeah.
that was a previous condition on the neighborhood master plan.
I see.
Yeah, so as part of the neighborhood master plan approval, they enacted that condition that they would need to address that property line.
And that's what's been.
And so that is what, yeah,
Okay.
the fence addresses that and the curb and, yes,
Okay, thank you.
good question, good clarification for sure.
I'd like to, thank you, Tom.
Okay.
I'd like to welcome the applicant if they have a presentation.
Ready?
Yes.
Evening. Todd Johnson, Terraforma Solutions. I will try to not be repetitive for you tonight. We obviously do have a little twist that has come up over the last 48 hours, and we'll talk about that. Even some options that we had just come up with over an hour ago, or hour and a half ago. So we are working on this potential solution for everyone. Again, location, you know where that is. You're seeing some pictures here of the site from an overall perspective, just looking in a couple different directions. And I'm sure you've been out there and seen the site as well already. As was mentioned, this went through a PUD. We rezoned it, went through the neighborhood plan, the minor subdivision, and we are here tonight on the preliminary plat with 32 units on the duplex side or in the urban area, and 5 suburban lots that really blend to the neighborhood that's around it. Here's a copy of that preliminary plat again, just rotated to the north is going to the left here. And so if we need to come back to this and look at any acreages, we can do that. The adjacent properties and the compatibility, we feel, again, this fits in very well with the neighborhood and the blend that is occurring out there today with the different uses. From the east side, we have residential, single-family detached, on the south as well. And then to the west, there is a plan. This is currently in the county, but there's a plan that this will also be urban residential. And then, of course, we have industrial to the north. And so we are buffering that area with our detention, and we have an alley proposed in our current layout that we have. We feel, and as was stated as well, we're meeting the town's technical criteria, the previously approved rezoning and neighborhood plan, and plat that has been put together. And this project, we feel, also will provide housing diversity and attainability with the product that is being proposed here. We have separation as well, as I mentioned, from the industrial uses, and we're extending roadway infrastructure that basically is somewhat of a missing link that you're seeing out there today going through these fields. We're completing a portion of that, and then ultimately, when the property to the west of us comes in, that connection can also be made from that standpoint. And our home scale is very similar to what you see around us as well. They are duplexes in the northern part of our project, but the scale of these homes will be very similar to single-family homes that are out there. They'll just have paired a situation. And then the homes on the south really will be aligned with what you're seeing out there today as well. We had actually looked at 2 proposals here for a connection coming into the south. The first one to the top left that Ton had gone through, this is one that we just came up with again this afternoon. And that park that you're seeing there is actually bigger than the park that we have on our plan right now. This would lose 2 units for us, so we'd go from 32 down to 30 units in this particular option. If we were looking to try to keep the property lines the same, we would most likely lose 2 more units in order to keep the drainage on our property. But we, again, are willing to work with the neighbor to the north, and if we can combine some drainage, or if we can work out an easement in that particular case, we'd like to obviously preserve as many units as possible for this. The other option that we had looked at that was discussed today as well is an option where we push the roadway over to the western side of the project. This again would keep the same number of units, or losing 2 units in total, but we'd also have detention that was a little more uniform in nature and not broken up by the roadway, and really again push this roadway all the way over to the west side. We understand that they may not be desirable by the town, and we are here to say we're willing to work on really any option that's needed to satisfy this requirement if it is made by the town. So with that, I will open it up for any questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant?
So this light commercial or industrial building here is basically becoming landlocked, even though it's owned by the same individual, correct?
Yeah, the upper,
Lot 1 and 2, right?
yes, are owned by the same group, and then a separate ownership is in the residential area.
And they're concerned about losing access to Highway 56, essentially?
Potentially.
How does your development still work with two less lots in it?
A little less for us, but we can still manage from that perspective, and we will be working with, if this connection is made, we will be working with that property owner for that connection and seeing how we can work out the cost of this roadway as well.
Can you help me understand which of these you like? You made a comment that the town doesn't like the one where
Yep.
you've shifted that roadway more to the left as opposed to bringing it straight through.
Yeah,
Can you
thanks.
explain the sort of pros and cons of the, because now I feel like we have three options. We have the original, we have the one that
Yep.
kind of got presented and now a modified version. And I'm wondering your preferences and the town's preferences for those differences.
Yeah, the one that Tawn actually presented is the same one that I have here on the left side. That concept's really the same. The only tweaks that we would make to it in order for us to maybe preserve not going back through and changing the other plat and the neighborhood plan too is if we potentially were able to keep the detention on our site without moving that lot line, right? But that's, we can continue to work through that one if that's a necessity there. I think from our preference, we would actually rather have it pushed as far to the west as possible. For us, it actually gives us a little bigger park in this particular case. It's even bigger, it's almost twice the size of the park that we currently have on the plan within our preliminary plat as it's shown. And I think, from the neighborhood perspective, maybe from the eastern neighbors, it's pushing it a little further away from that as well. But I also understand the town's potential concerns with it being offset from that perspective. And it's currently about almost 150 foot center line to center line. That gets very close to the criteria. But again, from a detention standpoint, it's actually a better solution for us as well because it keeps one uniform pond there rather than breaking it up by the road. And that gets more complex for us in a detention situation. Not that we can't take care of that, it's just gonna be additional costs and maybe some additional maintenance that may occur with that. So again, we're here to work on the right solution and the solution that works for everybody in this situation.
So if you use the plan on the left and you put a bridge over that?
Yeah.
Would that fix your detention issue?
What we would do is probably just put a culvert and that interconnects the pond on both sides.
Right.
It's just the issue with that is it can get a little more inefficient. It actually is losing some potential volume when you put the road through there and creating those inefficiencies. So and it's just another culvert that we have to maintain compared to it not being there. So it just adds a little more from that side.
Yeah, no, and that's why I was suggesting maybe a bridge or something like that where it's still.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
Tawn, is it possible for you to just describe what the town feels about these two solutions?
And then I'll certainly say a bit, and then I would also chime in if something else we think. So in conversations earlier today, the applicant and Mr. Vaughn, they met with Town Administrator Chris Kirk. And in that conversation, it is my understanding that Chris did talk to them about this alignment and preferred the direct alignment with the Farmstead Acres Way, which is the road in the middle. Just as easier connection, again, access spacing, potentially avoiding concerns with that. Also, as you notice, Remuda has a bit of it's a little offset between what would be Fickle Farms, I believe,
and this development, so the in-between, of course, is not developed yet, that's still a county property that is within unincorporated Larimer County. But in time, as this area develops and that becomes annexed, the intention there would be to connect through. And as you see, it already has a bit of an odd swerve to it. So having that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Luke, adjacent to that property line, it comes into that odd curve. And so that could be a concern as well, when it comes to safety and traveling. And so again, the ideal would be that they align it so that it's a nice, clean, just through cut for Farmstead Acres Way.
The only other thing I would say is that having the road aligned on the left there might make it difficult for the neighboring property to have a properly spaced road in their lot going north-south with like public right-of-way to meet code requirements. It might be possible. I mean, we're just looking at a PDF, but I think that would create some challenges if that lot develops in the future, assuming it does.
Yeah. Would it be possible if they did have the road on the left, when the property, I guess to the west, when they develop that property, could they use that same road to develop the front of homes for the adjacent property? Is that, or would that road have to be widened? I don't know. I mean, I don't know what those requirements would be.
Right, so Commissioner Semadalis, are you suggesting that if they use the option on the far right-hand side of the screen, could that future road be utilized when the property to the west develops? And that's a maybe. They would have to work with these property owners. That road may have to be widened depending on what their traffic impact was, and so it would need to be a private agreement. The town doesn't dictate these agreements, so it would have to be a private agreement between these property owners and the future developer. So we can't guarantee that that would happen.
And how wide is that road? 20 feet?
Oh, no, the road that we're proposing there right now, the one that you see on the left is actually just an extension of your standard section. You know, that you see to the south, that's a public right of way, and it just extends to the north. The one that we have on the right side, we pared that down a little bit to take away the tree lawn on the west side. To your point, you know, somebody else could come in later on and, you know, add that in depending on what they laid out there. So it was a little bit of a modified section that we had in here. If it actually had to go to a full right of way, then it would just take a little more out of that park, so.
Yeah, okay.
Retention pond as well.
Yeah, and detention pond as well, thank you.
Is there any concern that bringing that straight through, to me, it kind of goes to your question about the residential people wanting to go up and off of Mountain Avenue. If you just have this continuation of the road straight in there, I feel like you're gonna end up with a fair amount of people not realizing they don't go through or coming into that commercial area and either having to turn around or using it as a cut through, whereas so sort of off to the left, it's like you kind of don't know it's there. You'd have, you know, just the commercial people would.
Right.
Any thoughts on?
I suppose, you know, signage, of course, saying not a through street or no outlet
Yeah.
would probably be a solution.
Would they, I mean, could the property owners gate that property? So the road would basically end at the gate?
I believe so, and I think as long as then they would have to have a knock box for fire access, so that fire could get in if there was an emergency. I believe that would probably be a discussion, yeah, that certainly could take place with fire. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. At this time, I will open the public hearing for Farmstead Acres preliminary plat. We do have two names on the Farmstead Acres sign-in sheet so far. Stacy Shea, would you like to come up? Thank you. And you have 3 minutes.
Yes, good evening, Commissioners. I understand I only have 3 minutes. That's why we provided the written documentation. I'll just provide a couple of quick points to keep in mind. So the northern lot that is adjacent to Highway 56 is a residential use, and that access is dictated as residential only by CDOT. CDOT has indicated that.
I'm very sorry to interrupt you. Would you mind to
Oh, I'm sorry.
introduce?
Stacy Shea with Otis and Bedingfield on behalf of the Northern Property Owner, 533 Highway 56 LLC and Ryan Bond. So, as I was saying, that property that is directly adjacent to 56 is a residential use property with access that is designated for residential only. And so while there may be an easement drawn in there, it is not conducive with the zoning that was put on the southern lot, which is a light industrial zoning. The point that we have, and the reason that we have made our objection, is not really that we object to the Farmstead Acres development. It's more that we need to maintain access to this property, and we think there were some gaps in the process when the property was subdivided and then rezoned to a unusable zoning based on the access that is there. I'll also pose that the reason that there is not a easement between the Farmstead Acres parcel and the 533 Highway 56 parcel is that at the time that easement was established, granting access from what was 6th Street at the time and is now Dorothy off of Highway 56, that required access. That access was required by the town in 2008. The property was under common ownership. And law does not encourage me giving me an easement across parcels. In fact, those types of easements are defeatable generally. And so most people don't even think about doing something of that nature. So while, again, we don't want to stop this development, we just want to make sure that the property has consistent and usable access.
And right now, I mean, the only access to this property right now is that little access road, right?
Off of Highway 56 or
Yes.
the legal access? Yes, that residential access that CDOT has indicated they will close if we do not restrict it to simply residential access,
Oh, okay.
meaning there will be no access.
But you're currently accessing that site through a undesignated area, is that correct?
Arguably.
Okay.
Depends who's watching, right?
Any other questions? Thank you for your time, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Next on the sign up is Mr. Ryan Bond.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ryan Bond. I'm the one of the owners of the property to the north there. I honestly don't have a lot to add to what Stacy just said, but I would be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Maybe to clarify, you are accessing your property parcel 1 and 2, well, parcel 2 primarily from the south.
That is correct. Yep, through Remuda Road.
And what kind of traffic is going down that little road onto Highway 56?
Honestly, very little is my understanding. It's mostly the people that are in the house that use that that road off to Highway 56.
No, I mean, what do you have going on your property? Are there semis or?
In the building, yeah. So there is roughly 1 semi per week that goes through there. It comes off of Remuda Road currently. There are a few box trucks. It's not a daily type operation, but there are a few box trucks per week for deliveries and stuff. Amazon, FedEx type trucks, and mostly it's cars, pickup trucks for the people that work in that industrial building.
Okay. Are there any restrictions on the road on Remuda for semis or equipment like that?
No, it's not a designated truck route. And right now, Mr. Bond is needing to submit a land use application for the uses on that industrial property. So right now, we don't know what the anticipated truck, or the traffic trips or anything like that would be, other than what he's just stated. So, the box trucks, the FedEx delivery, the Amazon delivery, that's, common occurrence. The frequency of semi-truck traffic definitely would be a concern with the way the road needs to be designed to support that type of
Right.
truck. And then we'd have to evaluate the frequency of that during his site plan process, which is needed.
Right, yeah, I guess I don't know if there's any type of weight restrictions or any type of restrictions going through a neighborhood with a semi. I mean, I get when, this place is being built, there's plenty of semis going in and out, but ordinary traffic, I guess I'm just asking if there's any type of restrictions that, if we put access to that property and then it's restricted because you can't run a semi down there, you're back in the same boat.
As far as restrictions, I don't think there are any. I think it's more in the classification of the road dictates the type of construction, and typically a highway or an arterial road would have a much thicker pavement section and subgrade section. So a local road isn't meant for lots and lots of heavy traffic. So if an occasional heavy truck comes through, it's not going to destroy the road. But if hundreds came through, like on a highway, it would certainly affect it.
No, I guess I'm just, from a developer perspective, do they have to consider something different as they put their roads in and stuff like that, so, okay.
For what it's worth, it's not my intention to have that as heavy truck traffic. It, when we submit the land use permit, it will not be for that type of business and activity on that facility.
Yeah, but you're saying you still have a semi a week.
There is right now, yeah,
And that would be your only access,
that's correct.
right? So,
Yeah.
And as Anne pointed out, we certainly will take a look at that when Mr. Bond submits his land use applications.
Okay.
And that will be evaluated. Because yes, the town does have concern, of course, with the residential component. And we will evaluate that and discuss that with him when he submits his land use applications, and we have a better understanding as to what uses are proposed for that specific property.
So, not to put too fine a point on it, but we could grant access through the plating, but if the land use permit is denied, then there would be no truck traffic through that access.
Essentially, or the land use application could potentially have limitations in place or conditions on the site plan approval or use by special review, whatever it may be, that would limit the number of semi-traffic or what have you.
Is the plan that, to the right, is the radius sufficient to accommodate a semi on that one?
I was just gonna ask that question.
This was just provided to us hours ago, and so auto turn and all of that haven't been run on those intersections. So after Ton and the applicant work together to determine which of these proposed ideas is in the best interest of the town, they'll have to run auto turn to determine if a semi can even traverse the corners.
Right.
And those will be the details we'll look at in the final plat.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that question, that was the next.
Do you have any other questions for Mr. Bond?
Thank you.
Okay, any other public hearing testimony? Do we have anyone on Zoom?
No one else on Zoom other than our town attorney.
So I do have a question, so,
Oh, sorry, we have one
Oh.
person. Oh, you can do it after.
Okay, perfect. Hi, my name's Catherine Browning. I live over on Old Bessie Drive, so directly adjacent to this property going up. I just need some clarification because we currently have fencing along our west property that would line up correctly with the fence and the concrete that's about to go right next to our land. So I'm just curious if there's gonna be any easement or who would even take care of fences if cars proceed to do unfortunate things? Who that cost would fall on to replace fences? Or if there is a lot of snow, they said, yes, we'll move it in towards the property owner's lots, but that's not always the case. I know that there's snow removal companies that may not follow that. They said that there's gonna be a lip, a concrete lip, but how much is that gonna do if it's directly up against the fence? I hope that kind of makes
So you're to
sense.
the west of this proposed.
To the east.
Sure.
Not sure it's visible.
Not,
on this map.
not on,
We'd have to
I don't
see
know
if
how
it-
to, it would be on the next slide I could show you. You can actually see my house from that one.
So we're going, sorry, I'm going to go back to the one where it shows the blue dash line.
Yes, this one. So just, it's the second one in on the blue dash line from Remuda. Yeah.
Okay.
So I will have concrete directly next to my property, which I have no problem with. I get it, but a little bit of easement or some kind of guarantee that there's, space would be great, especially because I have 2 young kids and weird things happen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any additional testimony during the public hearing? If not, then we will close the hearing. Oh, thank you. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing for Farmstead Acres. And I think I'll go ahead and start by giving the applicant an opportunity to respond to Ms. Bryant's questions about the fencing and potential easement and who takes care of the fences.
Thank you. I believe Ton has a pretty good exhibit up here to show this. Is along that entire edge, this privacy fence will be placed on our property. And then just on the other side of this fence, or on, again, our side of the property, there'll be a vertical curb. So same as you see on the streets to prevent vehicles from really hopping curbs, but also channeling any drainage along this edge so it stays on our property again. And then that would also be a buffer or a delineation for any snow removal that goes up or down that alley. So that alley continues again from Remuda down to Tenderfoot, and we believe snow will be able to be handled either onto our properties in our driveways or throughout this alley. And then our HOA would maintain all of the alley and also the fencing along that edge.
Real quick, so you said you're gonna have a curb there.
Yes,
How far off of the curb will the fence be?
it's about a foot.
So it's not a sidewalk between the street or the curb and gutter to the fence.
No, they're right next to each other there.
And she mentioned that there's fencing existing on the
Correct.
Western property already, so will the fences be like flush against each other?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And it was described as a lattice fence, so there are gaps in the fence?
No, there's actually, it's solid on the bottom, 4.5 feet there. And then the top 12 to 18 inches would have that lattice, a little more of a, so you're not just seeing solid privacy fence, it's just an option that we have. If it had to be all privacy, we'd be fine with that too, so,
Standard 6-inch curb?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
you are in one of these houses that I see west of Ole Bessie Drive, is it correct? Yeah.
Okay. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone in the public hearing for your comments. Now, commissioners, it is time for our deliberation. Remember, we are considering if the preliminary plat meets the criteria for approval. And I will also remind the commission that we have options in our deliberation. One would be approval as it is currently structured, this preliminary plat. One is another is an approval with some of these proposed changes. We are able to deny the application, or we're able to continue the application so it could be taken up again at the July 10th meeting. So the continuation would be, thank you very much, Ton. If we feel that the preliminary plat is going to change to such a dramatic effect that it's not reasonable to make a decision on the application tonight based on the new information that we've gotten in the last 24 hours. Okay, so with that being said, I think that, sorry to make you change the slide again, but could we go to the conditions for approval, please?
So the previous conditions of approval?
Yes, I guess we'll just have it up and then I'll open it for.
Chair Smith, are you referring to the criteria for approval?
Sorry, criteria,
Okay.
yes.
Sorry, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so let's have some deliberation before we start stepping through the criteria. Have any comments or impressions they want to share?
No, I did notice though that there was a minor modification to include a second trail connection. Is that part of like a master plan or?
Yeah, so there is a trail that is directly to the south, and so, yes, the original neighborhood master plan only had one 8-foot trail connection on the east property line. Through review and looking at open space and subdivision identity elements, which are requirements of code, staff asked the applicant to consider a second connection, just as better use of, that used to be just a lot that would be open space, and we didn't feel that it would be used as, it wouldn't be a great space to use. And so we asked for this additional trail connection, and the applicant was willing. And so those two would connect down south to the existing trail that's there in Farmstead.
Kind of looking at the criteria, I think, we're getting to sort of the meat of tonight's discussion all seems to be on 4 and the transportation design and how this ties in with lots 1 and 2, and kind of how everybody feels about that. Having looked at those plans, I don't know, my tummy, I like that one to the left. I like that not coming directly through, but I understand why from a roadway standpoint and what happens then to the west that's tricky.
Right.
So I want to say I'm excited that the developer is willing to work with Lot 2 and trying to find a way to make that make sense. I think that works. I appreciate the clarity on that the current access on Mountain Avenue is residential, and so I can see why that's a problem. I struggle a little bit because some of the details about the detention and the need to do the lot line and the truck traffic and some of that, I don't want to put this off. My leaning is to try to, if everybody here were comfortable and the staff is comfortable, something in the motion too, but I think then we have to give direction or work through which of those alternatives. So I'm curious what everybody else likes in that. I like the idea of a bigger park. I like it a little off to the side, and I like the idea that commercial traffic wouldn't be as obvious, so to speak, to the residential corridor there. But as you said, there's ways around it. It can be marked, but I live at the end of a street that's marked and everybody drives down and turns around at the end about 50 times a day. So they obviously don't look at the sign very well.
Yes, really good points, thank you. So I guess if we don't have additional questions for staff or comments, we can start stepping through, and Stacey already mentioned number 4, but maybe we talk about at least 1 through 3 first to see if we feel that the application meets those criteria. And then we can talk more about number 4 once we get to it. Sound okay?
I had one question
Oh,
for
yes.
staff. Referral agencies, did everyone respond?
Yes, so the preliminary plat did go through its standard referral. It actually went through multiple referrals, and has been in the process now for well over a year. Yes, at this point, we do not have any outstanding concerns. That's why originally, the original motion contained no conditions, as everything has been addressed and the referral agencies were comfortable with this proceeding to final plat as presented without this unique circumstance here at the end.
Yeah, just don't want any surprises.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And again, if they make this modification, that's why we would want the changes made at final plat submittal and not any later. Right off the bat, we want the referral agencies to be able to see this, since this is a significant change.
And sorry, I keep going back to
No,
the
it's good.
same thing,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm reading your motion or the draft of a motion. It seems to leave it unsettled as far as whether we're doing it down the center or the left. Is that staff's preference, if we were to move this forward, is to go ahead and leave that open since you haven't had much time to think through it, and then that would just get resolved at time of final plat? Our condition would be based on there has to be that connection, and the details on that connection could come at the next step. Is that?
Great question. Yes, I believe because this has come so quickly and we haven't had an opportunity to discuss in more detail or really look at it, the preference would be that it's generally, you would condition that they need to make the connection, and then there would be additional conversations, like we would have a pre-application meeting for the final plat. And I believe at that time, we as staff, which would also include our public works department, and streets department, which I think would be really essential in having that conversation. And then we would also have a bit more time to look into what these options are and the challenges that may arise. And we can have that conversation then with the applicant in a pre-app before they then submit. And so when they submit, they know which one they're going with, instead of tying them to one, because as a condition, they kind of be pigeonholed, and we don't necessarily want that.
Good, so your preference is that we would not kind of work to decide that gets decided later.
Correct.
And is staff comfortable with motion number 2, where we would go ahead and push this forward if the rest of the committee feels that way? Or would you prefer to have it continue to have this more resolved?
I believe staff is comfortable with motion number 2. Again, we see that this, yes, is a change from the neighborhood master plan. However, because it does not impact or increase the intensity or the density reflected on the neighborhood master plan, and this is, sorting and working with an adjacent property owner and being collaborative and understanding, we feel that motion number 2 would be appropriate. We would be comfortable.
Okay.
And Chair Smith and Ton, if I may interject here. So if you do go with motion 2, we would just want the applicant to acknowledge that they understand those 2 conditions before you do the final vote on that, so that gives the applicant that opportunity to put on the record that they understand that that is what's going to be required of them to do. And then as far as the intensity of those amended change of zone lines and the amended neighborhood master plan and the amended subdivision, staff has had preliminary discussions about what that entails and what wouldn't it entail, because it is just an amendment for the purpose of moving a line on a piece of paper. And so we do want to be cognizant of the intensity, and there wouldn't be some application requirements for that. We would make it be as seamless as possible, while still meeting the intent of that application process.
And may I add to the motion number 2, condition number 2, we recognize that through conversations, maybe if the lot line isn't changing and they happen to be able to resolve, detention all on site and there isn't a need for like the lot line change, it may be that this second condition through those conversations becomes null and void because it's not warranted, it's not triggered by what they're proposing. So we do recognize that, but simply adding this statement of force in that instance it does occur, this just puts that, again, ensures that it's addressed appropriately. So, and if it becomes null and void through whatever concept they come up with, we would certainly address that in the staff report for the final plat.
Okay.
Okay, well, so,
Should we step through the criteria?
Yeah.
yeah, well, I'm just wondering if, what would be the reason to speed it up today? When we can review that, when everything is settled and everything is provided by the applicant and the other people around, and we have a better view of what it is, because I'm not comfortable giving an okay now, whatever it is, on something that I do not completely control. So that's my point of view.
Yeah. I think it would be more the developer moving on risk
Yeah.
on how they manage where the road goes and the stormwater retention. That would be their risk if they want to move forward. Because then, otherwise, then they have to come back for the same meeting for preliminary law. Now, granted, we would have more details.
Yeah.
And those issues would have been worked out, but I think as long as there's flexibility where the planning department can work with the developer and the developer can work with the property owner to come up with a resolution, that's on, and they keep the ball moving.
Yeah, I certainly, we're hitting with a lot, this is kind of a
Right.
big change at the
It is,
last minute, it's
yes.
a big change for
Because we don't
everybody
have a
in
lot
the
of
room.
information, yeah.
At the same time, I think that as long as we see it at final plat and, we can hand it back over to staff and the team to kind of work through it, at least the number of units isn't changing, the
Right.
open space isn't changing, impacts on adjacent property owners isn't changing. I feel pretty comfortable with it.
Right.
Again, if staff felt
Well,
comfortable with it.
if I
which is-
understand well, the key question is, do we give access from the Ramunda on the south, or do we keep the access from Mountain Avenue? That's the key question.
Well, Mountain Avenue, I think, goes away.
Likely.
Likely
For the
will go
commercial
away.
access.
Yeah, and we
Yeah.
won't have any input into that.
Because that's CDOT.
It's their expectation that it will likely not be an access in the future. Because of CDOT requirements.
And as much as I don't typically love the idea of bringing kind of industrial or commercial traffic through a residential area and would prefer to see it off of Mountain Avenue, is I
Yeah.
think what you're kind of
Yeah.
implying.
Yeah.
But if that access is limited to residential now, it's outside the town of Berthoud's control, I also don't want to leave a parcel that's there as an industrial use
Yeah, big
without proper
landlocked.
access,
Yeah.
and they're not accessing off of Mountain Avenue now. So even though the access may not be quite kosher right now on how that's
Yes.
coming through, I think we have an opportunity with this development to clean that up for sort of the benefit of all the parties. I think it makes sense to do it, and I think was outlined in the letter that we had in our packets today, and I know kind of at the last minute, it's something that seems to have been missed, I think, on a couple of different levels, and I can see why it happened that way, but I think this is a good opportunity to fix that moving forward. I also like the idea that lot number 2 is gonna have to be coming through, so that there's a lot more clarity on detail on exactly what traffic can and will be coming through this neighborhood.
I think that is my biggest concern at this stage is the unknown of
Yeah.
the kind of traffic that will be going through this
Well, not only that,
process.
but I have a concern that once people figure out they can go through this road and get to 56 through the back way, now you have traffic going to Mountain Avenue, creating a different issue for the homeowner and for Lot 2.
Is there physical access right now from across Lot 2 to Mountain Avenue? Or is there just an easement
an
that's not there, that's not being utilized? Because I got the impression that Lot 2 was being accessed right now through the south and not off of Mountain Avenue, even though there is an easement across 1 to Mountain Avenue.
I believe you can access.
You
it.
can physically get there.
Yes,
Okay.
you can.
That's why I was asking if there would be some sort of like barrier or.
Well, a gate or something like that. I mean, I don't know if we can. Can we require a gate going into
Not
Lot
likely as
2?
part of this application for Farmstead Acres, but again, when Mr. Bond comes in for his site plan or use by special review application, that is something we can note and potentially have that conversation.
Yeah, because we want him to have access, but we don't necessarily want all the residents going through there.
And again, yeah, and then we can, with that application, then Berkeley Fire would be involved and we can have that conversation.
For
And
what?
ensure that they may need it gated as an emergency, or maybe they have no heartburn with it being closed altogether. But that is certainly something we can evaluate with Mr.
Down the
Bond's application process.
And that will come before the Plan Commission as well?
No, well, I shouldn't say that. If it's site plan review based upon what the proposed use or uses are, site plan review would not come to public hearing. If it's a use by special review, then there would be a public hearing.
I don't think the developer should have to pay for that, but that's certainly something to consider, because I do think that's gonna become an access issue. If people are gonna be going through that. I know I would.
Yep, and
If there was a shortcut, I would do it.
yeah, and Commissioner Semidalis and all the other commissioners, we've heard that concern. We've made note of it, and likewise, coming down from Lot 2, it would either have to be a paved access into Lot 3 as well, so that there wouldn't be tracking of mud and debris into that neighborhood from Lot 2. So there will have to be a lot of considerations made when Mr. Bond does submit his land use application for Lot 2, and how that integrates into the overall lots 3 and 4 as well. So there's a lot of consideration that will be made. Luke will be reviewing that, our Public Works Department will be reviewing that. And there are options for gates on highway, on Mountain Avenue, as well as that gate. We'll be collaborating with the Fire Protection District and others regarding that access. So there's just a lot of coordination that will need to occur. And again, some of this information is as new as
Yeah.
3 hours ago.
Okay, yeah, and I know that that's not what our intent is tonight. But I just, as we sit there and we think about option 2 here, right? Making sure that someone's gonna address the next step, and I think you guys are on that. I'm sure you guys are. I
Is there-
trust you are.
Is there a time frame by which Mr. Bond has to make his submittal?
The town has been working with Mr. Bond for about a year on the need to submit a land use application.
Okay,
Nothing has been submitted thus far.
No.
okay.
So I would suggest that we step through each of the criteria and discuss whether or not they are sufficiently met for approval. And if the answer is no, or we cannot make a decision for any of them, then I think that would trigger a conversation about denial or continuing the application. Does that seem reasonable? All right, so criteria 1 is that the preliminary plat represents a functional system of land use and is consistent with the rationale and criteria set forth in this code. Do we feel that this has been met?
Yes.
Yes.
Criteria number 2 is that the application is consistent with the approved concept plan and incorporates the town's recommendations and any conditions of approval.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
I think so.
to some extent, I would argue that it's not consistent with the approved concept plan, but with the potential amendments that we would add, then I think that that could be resolved.
I would agree with that.
Okay, criteria 3 is that the land use mix within the project conforms to Berthoud's zoning district map and preferred land use map and furthers the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan and port plan.
Yeah.
Number 4, the utility and transportation design is adequate given existing and planned capacities of those systems. And this is one that Stacy has flagged as potentially not being sufficiently met.
Yeah, and I kind of look, it's like 4 and 5 go together, because at the same time, the
Right.
negative impacts on adjacent land uses, that traffic is kind of a part of that. And so the modifications are being made to mitigate those, which is something they're being asked to do.
Right.
And so I
Yeah.
kind of, you know what I mean? It's, we
Right.
can't do one without the other, I guess. So it's hard to mitigate the negative impact that this could cause.
Yeah, criteria 5 being negative impacts on adjacent land uses, including but not limited to solar access, heat, dust, glare, traffic, and noise have been identified and satisfactorily mitigated.
Right. So I feel like the change helps with 5 with it mitigates a traffic issue, right? By requiring that access that now is sort of not legally in place, but has been in place for, I mean, that you said, Ton, at least 2008? I mean, I'm just curious, how long access to parcel 2? Do we have any idea from a prescriptive easement or anything else?
I have no idea.
Okay.
And with number 5, the negative impacts to adjacent land uses, we would have to consider that road if we wanted
Yeah.
to go to the west,
The west or the
the
center.
access
Yeah.
road, yeah, so
So I
that,
don't think we are okay here. I
yeah,
don't think that 5 is met.
yeah. Okay,
Okay, so we will come back to 5. Let's talk about 6 and 7. There is a need or desirability within the community for the applicant's development, and the development will help achieve a balance of land use and or housing types within Berthoud. Yes.
Yes.
yes,
And 7 is how the applicant has addressed comments received from the public during the public comment portion of the process. And I think that I'll specifically ask the commissioners to respond to the comments received on the eastern boundary of the property regarding the fencing. And whether or not we believe that the applicant has provided a sufficient solution.
that's the fencing, yeah, I would think so.
Okay, so let's revisit 5. And is there any additional information that we could get from staff or the applicant that would help us in our deliberation?
Well, I think the question is, do we really understand the 2 options? The road in the middle or the roads to the west? That's basically the question here.
And I think that
And do we understand all the impacts that it may have on, the traffic, the way, I mean, traffic goes to 2 or 3 curves? That's a little bit of a question, because it's gonna be a residential area. And if we go to the west, there's gonna be additional curves. The Pocket Park will be on the west as well, northwest, so probably not well centered for the usage of that Pocket Park.
Yeah, that's a
So
good point.
I don't think that we clearly understand what the pros and cons of both solutions are. That's my feeling.
I think the road to the west, though, we don't know what's gonna happen to the west, and that could negatively impact how that development
Yeah.
would work if a road was adjacent to
Yes.
that.
Can I ask staff a question? So with the road to the west and now a long alley between those paired homes essentially, right, that runs along the containment pond or the containment area, has anybody, I'm assuming that hasn't been run by the fire district yet to see how long the access is and 2 points of within so many feet of whatever, I just don't know.
That's correct, since this was a late development, fire district as well as other referral agencies have not had an
Yeah.
opportunity to review or consider that.
And I agree with everything everybody said, I really do, it was a lot to hit us. One of the things, I guess, why I'm comfortable with the motion is, motion 2, is because we're not picking. That'll get resolved with the final plat, and we leave it back to staff.
Yeah.
The fire department and everything else to kind of work through. It's just not detailed enough. I don't think they can answer all of our
Right.
questions because they just haven't
Right.
had it in enough time. So our motion is that they have to provide access.
Right.
But where that access and how that access function would get resolved later. But are you saying you'd feel more comfortable not doing any sort of vote until they refine that more and bring that back on this round, as opposed to final plat? You want that done with preliminary as opposed to final, I guess is my question. Are you comfortable going ahead and just saying you provide access and the details of where that access come at final?
I would be more comfortable if we had all the details. It's just, I mean, it's in a month and, I mean, 6 weeks maybe in July, on a project that has lasted many years, so it's not at the last step that we need to speed it up, you know, I mean, honestly, I mean, and then it's a vote, but I don't feel comfortable to go ahead not understanding exactly what the impacts are for future development on the west, as you said. And also, I mean, fire department, the traffic will represent in the, and how it's gonna be managed, because, you know, having the two curves, you know, doesn't help, to be honest.
Tom, what is to the east of Lot 2?
Brookside.
To the east, yeah, Brookside and Center.
That's center, okay. And I'm assuming since this has all happened very recently that no solution has been pursued for possible access out of Lot 2 through another commercial area like Brookside. I'm asking because I think it's a little bit unreasonable to have an industrially zoned area have one entry and exit point that goes straight through a residential area.
Yeah.
You're correct. I don't believe there has been conversations with adjacent property owners. I mean, certainly, I don't know really the feasibility and how open Brookside of any of the options, you know, would be amenable to that. I don't know. Again, that's a lot of evaluation and if that would even be possible. And again, the property directly to the west is unincorporated Laramie County. And that in and of itself has challenges. So
So to the west of Lot 2 isn't Moore Farmstead, it's Larimer County.
correct.
Okay.
It's an undeveloped Laramie, well, it has a residential property or residential development, but yes, it's unincorporated. And I suspect as many of these unincorporated lots along here, they likely at this point don't have the intention of annexing into the town or really accommodating. So I don't know, in the end, this may be the most viable option. But, yeah, I can't.
But we don't really
But we
know.
don't.
And the lot to the west is, you said zoned, is unincorporated residential, correct?
Yes, I believe it's RR2, which is
So
rural
I would
residential.
imagine, I'm guessing that it has the same access restrictions as Lot 1 has with the state, so really that isn't probably not a option.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it ever changed, that access was closed, it would have to go to review it.
So does a traffic study have to be completed for a final plat? Considering now we're going into an industrial area.
Yes, so through this process, beginning with neighborhood master plan, they were required to provide a traffic impact study. So they have completed a traffic impact study for the preliminary plat currently. I'm not certain that this modification would have much impact. However, if Mr. Bond and his site plan application, generally, we do require a traffic impact study with site plan review as well as use by special review as well. So those are the items that will be considered with his application, again, to inform us as to what's appropriate, if there should be limitations on traffic, out of consideration, the fact that it is residential. But yes, a traffic impact study will come as well with the final plat. So build much upon what they already have. So at this point, the civil drawings, and those documents are at 80% with preliminary plat, and expectation that final plat is 100%.
So it's possible that we would get to final plat and have a traffic impact study that has been updated with this change, but it would not include any information from the land use impact
Right.
application.
I think that's my concern too.
Yes, this would be
Does the road
traffic.
need to be wider to accommodate longer vehicles? I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming there's gonna be residential parking on the streets, right?
I believe so.
Right.
Yeah, local roads are typically designed to have
Right.
parking.
But are they designed to have parking and semis making turns? So I think that's probably my biggest concern when I was doing my questioning was, as we start thinking about that, does that road need to be wider to accommodate certain things or?
And they can certainly provide documentation that'll show what type of truck will be able to go through, what type of curb or turn, like the radius of the curb will need to be for the end of the trailer to not roll over and go into the frontage or hit a street tree or hit the parking or, yeah.
Or
So,
parked car. or
exactly.
whatever. I mean, that's, yeah.
So I think, the question for us is, do we hold this up for the sake of what we don't know? But there's also multiple opportunities to ferret all that out where a referral agency could come in and say, oh, no, you can't do that. Or, so there's a lot of opportunities that allows us to keep the conversation going, I think, versus, stopping and asking for more. It gives time to, there's still plenty of opportunities without delaying it, I can tell.
But I think that land use application needs to be done concurrently, so then that way everything can be completed.
And yeah, I don't
Well,
see
that's what I
final
was
plat.
asked,
Yeah.
because I was like, are they under a time frame to
Right.
submit that? Because I don't want to penalize the people who are trying to do
Right.
the development here. They're not causing the problem.
No,
Right, so the applicant tonight is just trying to accommodate a neighbor,
Right.
but it's not their issue. There's somebody going across this property with no legal right to go across that property currently. And I don't wanna exacerbate a problem. I appreciate that they're trying to help
Right.
them, but I don't wanna indefinitely hold up the approval of this if we don't have a timeline where Mr. Bond has to come through to say what's
Right.
happening on that parcel. And I don't know that it should be the obligation of this developer to design a road, et cetera, for a land use that,
Right.
any
Right.
any whatever they want to do in the future.
Right.
I agree, I don't ever like bringing industrial traffic through a residential area.
Right.
But I don't know legally, I know we have the attorneys on the phone, how they feel about all of this. The strong preference for me, if there's a legal way to bring industrial traffic off of Mountain Avenue, I think that's better for everybody. But
right. But that's
I'm-
not gonna work.
I don't know that that's in our purview, because I'd prefer not to see it come through this area.
And would you like to weigh in a little bit on this?
Thank you, and then I know that Attorney Smith is also available. So we have to remember that right now, Lot 1 is the small lot that has a home on it. Lot 2 is where the industrial use is occurring, and Mr. Bond understands that he needs to apply for a land use permit. So.
To be
right-
clear, he owns both lots 1 and 2.
Yes, yeah. And so right now, there is an access, it's a legal access from State Highway 56 or Mountain Avenue onto Lot 1 and 2. However, it is for residential purposes only. CDOT alerted the town to the fact that they were wanting to change the access to allow the industrial use. And CDOT contacted the town about this, knowing that we would need a land use permit. And when a land use permit is reviewed, CDOT is one of our reviewing referral entities. So we started working with Mr. Bond. So it's really important to understand that there is access across Lot 1 to serve Lot 2. However, it is strictly limited to residential access. So right now, Lot 2 is not landlocked. There is access, just the property owner is wanting the choice to change the property use. And that's what's causing the problem with the access from CDOT.
And so what could happen is not that that road would just be blocked off and that you couldn't access it for any purpose, just that you wouldn't be able to access it for commercial or industrial purposes.
Correct.
The residents would still have access.
Correct, and so the property owner for Farmstead Acres, Lot 3 and 4, with this information is trying to accommodate a non-residential access for Lot 2 for whatever, you can ask them why they're doing this, and it's really not ours to question why. And so at that, I'm gonna turn it over to Attorney Smith if you have any questions or any additional items you would like to add, Attorney Smith.
I thought that was really well said, Director Johnson. And if there are any lingering questions after Director Johnson's comments, I'd be happy to answer those.
Let me ask this slightly different then. If we were to go to motion 1 and make a motion to approve this preliminary plat like it was presented to us before we got here tonight with these last minute changes with no access to Lot 2, is there any legal concern that somehow that recommendation is violating any land rights that Lots 1 and 2 have?
That's a great question, and with all due respect to the information you received tonight, I believe the answer to that is absolutely not. So, no, you would not be violating any rights.
Thank you. Because I guess what I'm hearing, all of us don't love the mixing of this. And I love that the developer before us tonight is trying to accommodate, but I think we're struggling with all of the negative possibilities and no certainty of what's happening on that commercial use and that chicken and egg of having no idea what's gonna happen here. So let's redesign this site to accommodate what we don't know is ever gonna happen on another site. So I'm now more leaning towards motion 1 and just approving as it was presented.
And sorry, staff has said that they've been waiting for the land use application for Lot 2. Is there something that will happen if you don't receive it? Is there a reason that you've been waiting to give more context for?
Sure, the town staff, when we are in situations when there's a land use activity without a permit, we try to work with the applicant. And the applicant has one user, one tenant for Lot 2 that we've given an extension to have them vacate by June 12th. And then there are other tenants on the property. And there's issues with the building, there's some other issues that are sanitary sewer connection, things like that, that staff is trying to accommodate time. And if it proceeds much further, then our compliance officer will start getting involved.
And to go back to this dedicated access, is there a way for the Lot 2 owner, Mr. Bond, to apply to CDOT to make that a commercial entrance?
I suppose it's possible, but from what CDOT has stated, there just isn't enough room between, because they don't own the adjacent properties, and they would likely need to widen the road to accommodate a median, like, left turn lane for any commercial traffic entering from that direction, or a right turn lane into the property that would impact the adjacent property owner because it would require extra right of way along there. So it seems unfeasible even if CDOT were to allow it, but.
But we're willing to allow it to go through a neighborhood. I mean,
think
that's the alternative.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Do we have concluding thoughts on whether we would prefer a continuance versus someone putting forward a motion for approval or denial?
I'm kind of hard pressed to hold up the developer for that. I mean, I am. I don't know, I kind of like your suggestion that maybe we approve. So if we approved motion 1 as is, can Mr. Bond and the applicant still work together to come back with something different on a final plat? I guess is the question.
So you certainly, if you went with motion number 1, then this would proceed to Town Board of Trustees as is,
Yes,
without the modification to the access. Then you recommend approval, so potentially then the Town Board of Trustees could approve the preliminary plat as it has been presented. Certainly, the applicant and Mr. Bond could continue to have conversations about a solution, and maybe in that time, Mr. Bond would submit land use application, and we'd have a little bit more information. However, the challenge therein lies then the final plat by code requirement is required to be consistent,
Right.
substantially consistent with the preliminary plat.
Right.
And so one could potentially argue that this modification would not be substantial compliance,
Right.
and therefore it would go back then, it would have to go back to preliminary plat.
And that's the reason why I'm asking. that
Motion
question.
2 keeps that.
Yeah, keeps that option available.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the problem with motion 2 is it mandates they provide that access, right? You shall provide the access. So it's not saying, it's figuring out, so motion 2 is saying, we want that access for that industrial use through this. That leaves it up to staff and the team to figure out where that access, how it goes through, right? And I've just heard a bunch of us struggling with do we want industrial access through here? Semi trucks and all the rest. Again, I appreciate that the petitioner has been willing to try to accommodate that. I think that's.
Is it, I guess this is a question for Attorney Smith. Is there another word we can use other than shall, where it's open to, it's not required, but if they can work on a solution, the developer and Mr. Bond, for motion 2?
I think that.
I don't know how, I'm sorry, but that goes back to that chicken and egg. Until Mr. Bond says what he wants to do with the property, I don't know how they start accommodating and figuring out what.
I do think that there's, a very, very small, I don't, and Director Johnson, I will defer to you on this, but I don't believe by, approving a preliminary plat that shows that reconfiguration, it's not anything that creates a promise on the part of the town, for any sort of approval of the site plan to the north. I mean, they're really unrelated. In the background, there's been 2 private parties working and one private party has come forward with the results of that in this preliminary plat, but the changing of the plat doesn't create any rights in the property to the north vis-a-vis the town and that property.
Chair Smith Chair Smith and Attorney Smith and members of the Planning Commission, if you're feeling you'd like a little bit more flexibility, and if I may, motion 2, item 1 could read, the applicant shall attempt to provide access. So we could just add those 2 words in there if you're wanting more flexibility there for that particular motion.
I think that's an interesting option. I think I maybe would want to be specific that in this attempt, the intent should be to divert potential traffic in a way that it is not going directly past every single house in this development, if that is clear.
Well, that would mean they would have to have access to Mountain Avenue or
Maybe
to
we
the,
need to
to
send that
the
again.
east. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, I get the, so attempt, I don't know what we're telling them then.
Yeah.
You do, we do want you to provide access, or we don't want you to provide it, we want you to think about access? I mean, I think it's very difficult without knowing the use of Lot 2 and what,
Yeah.
what specific traffic is going to be going through this residential area.
Right.
What kind of commercial traffic is, it's, and again, I don't wanna hold them up because Mr. Bond hasn't submitted
Right.
what.
No, absolutely.
I'm just thinking, any type of industrial, any type of industrial property, and I'm not sure what kind of activities being done there, but more than likely, there's gonna be some type of semi-activity. I get box trucks and stuff like that.
And in the comprehensive plan, let me ask this a slightly different way. Lot 2 is, what is it zoned in the long-term comprehensive plan? Is that supposed to stay industrial?
Oh, so as the future land use map?
Yes.
I believe it's urban.
Quick look. I'll quick look.
So it's either,
Well, I wanna make sure if we're making accommodations to put industrial, that really the long-term plan for the village is to keep this use this way, right? I
Right.
don't,
If it's gonna be residential,
yeah,
then
if
it
the
makes
long-
sense to put a road there to attach at some point.
or then we don't have to worry because they can go
Right.
off of Mountain Avenue.
That's true.
They don't need to.
Well, maybe.
But they said it's a residential access to Mountain Avenue.
Yeah, but what is, yeah. Oh, yeah, but they would have to widen it or do whatever, yes, turning lanes, yeah.
Only if it's for commercial.
So this portion of the property, so lot 2 is technically on a future land use map, urban residential, while Farmstead Acres is suburban residential. And keeping in mind that the property was rezoned in this configuration in 2023. As part of the overall Farmstead Acres minor subdivision and neighborhood master plan at that time.
So Lot 2 will be residential in the future, is what you say?
Urban,
Not necessarily. So the challenge is current staff understanding what the conversation was when it was zoned in one and not consistent with the future land use map. I don't know if Mr. Bond or even the applicants for Farmstead Acre have the history on that, as they were, Mr. Bond was involved at that stage, and why potentially, or what that conversation maybe was. But that would be a deviation.
So that would have been what happened in 2008.
No, that was in 2023.
The zoning of Lot 2.
Correct. So
In 2023, it was rezoned industrial.
Correct.
Even though the comprehensive plan has that as residential. You're not making this easier.
No,
Sorry.
because it's kind of landlocked. I mean, it's a tough.
Can I ask how staff feels about this? I mean, we're obviously struggling here. I like, you know, is the town feel the connection through this road appropriate for this site? Does this connection, is this important into the system? Do we think this is the right, that there needs to be a connection between lots 3 and 2?
And of course, that's difficult for staff.
Yeah.
Because when we do this evaluation, of course, we look to the comprehensive plan, development code, and the future land use map, and make those evaluations, and we base it upon review criteria when we do that. Like I said, Anne and I, Luke, were not involved in this decision. It's either we were just coming onto the town, or, so we have no history of our own as to the conversations and what was discussed, and again, why this. But according to the future land use map, yes, I would say that we're now, it's difficult to understand because industrial is not consistent with the future land use map. And that would be difficult, and I would say under current staffing, it's likely that we may have gone about it completely different if this was a current request. So it's hard to say, and I unfortunately don't know what those conversations were previously. Even lot 1 is currently zoned, I believe, C1, C2, which again, is not consistent with the future land use map.
Can I ask a question of the applicant? If we kick this forward to July 10, what type of hardship does this create for you? Or does kicking it forward to July 10 potentially give you a little more time for everybody to really get their ducks in a row?
First off, I would say we appreciate your discussion and the back and forth on this. We also struggled with this issue. And we feel that if you did continue it to the 10th, it obviously gives both us and the town staff additional time to work out the issue. Again, we've just came up with solutions here in the last 48 hours, and so we're trying to work with this. But again, we really appreciate the discussion that you have had and working through it. We would hope, though, that it doesn't go past the 10th to keep it going, because we have been working through this for a while now. And as has been mentioned, this is in conformance with the neighborhood plan and what we had done before. So, but to your question, we appreciate it, and we're okay with a continuance to the 10th.
Could I ask the same thing of Mr. Bond? Because even though he's not the applicant, he does have a vested interest in this result, obviously, or is that not considered because he's not the applicant for this petition?
I would ask your chair and then maybe ask Attorney Smith.
I would like to hear Attorney Smith's perspective on this, but I think I would be curious to hear from Mr. Bond if a continuance to July 10th would provide adequate time for potentially a land use application for this site and further deliberation with the applicant. Attorney Smith, do you have perspective on whether or not it's advisable to?
Well, yeah, I mean, I really don't think that's relevant. I mean, it's not legally relevant. I know the curiosity is there, but the applicant has stated that they are willing to, they're okay with the contingents. And I think that's really the party of interest, and that's really the extent of the inquiry.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking.
Well, I really appreciate that. First, you want to find a solution to get the access to lot number 2, and that you are willing to take a little bit more time to better understand it, better formulate what you want to do. And it should be a fast one, a quick one the next in July, because we worked all the details already.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you for that, because I know it's a lot of work, and but I never like to have to make a decision on something that has been decided 2 or 3 hours ago. So, right, so it doesn't look to me that everything was under control. This is my opinion, and it's a commission, so other people might have another opinion on that.
I would agree with Mark's position on that, that we don't have enough information to make all the decisions tonight.
Any other comments? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion to continue the Farmstead Acres preliminary plat request to July 10th, 2025, Planning Commission meeting.
Okay, we have a motion
Yes.
Second that.
and a second. And could we please now take a vote?
Commissioner Brody,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffmans.
Yes.
Commissioner Pond,
Yes.
Commissioner Semadalis,
Yes.
Commissioner Sigmund,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith.
Yes.
And the motion carries unanimously. Unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you very much. for
Thank
the
you.
information.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the details. These decisions are lasting forever, so.
Yep, I'll give 30 seconds for us to turn over here.
Thank you.
Gotta figure out how to make this less, turn off less off.
Any email decision, DK
Thank you, Ann, for directing me procedurally. I appreciate that.
Water break?
Yeah,
Water
let's,
in and out.
okay, it seems like we are in need of a break, so let's come back at 7:55. You can be very Okay, our second land use item on the agenda tonight is the Harvest West annexation, neighborhood master plan and zoning. This is 3 requests, an annexation request, the neighborhood master plan application, and the request for rezoning. John Hildebrand, a senior planner in Bergen's Community Development Department, will present the staff report on these items. Oh, nope.
You're stuck with me, Chair Smith and members of the Planning Commission, thank you. Ann Johnson with the Community Development Department. So, Planning Manager Hillenbrand did go through this earlier with her slides. So I'm just gonna let the record show that we did walk through the land use planning process. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer those. However, I don't feel as if it's necessary to repeat those. The members of the audience saw this with the first presentation and nothing has changed.
Okay.
All right, so with an annexation, we do the neighborhood master plan following that annexation, because once you determine that, yes, they've met the intent of the annexation, then the neighborhood master plan shows you how they're going to use that property. And then that zoning request comes right after the neighborhood master plan, because if you all approve or deny the neighborhood master plan, then there's reason to just approve or deny the changes zone. They go together. And so knowing that eventual land use is an important decision is an important component to know for that change of zone phase. So just a little bit different than like a preliminary plat that you just heard. The next step would be that preliminary plat with the 80% construction drawings. That would come to you next. Then the final plat with 100% construction drawings. Then staff and the developer will be working out that development agreement. And then in this particular case, there's no need for a site plan or a use by special review permit because it is not, it's all residential. So it would stop with step number 3. So again, taking a look at when we consider a annexation, one tool that staff uses to evaluate is our comprehensive plan. A comprehensive plan, again, is similar to that sports playbook or a business model. It's not regulatory, it is a visionary guiding document for land development. And our particular comprehensive plan is a guide to coordinate and accommodate growth, respecting the town's distinctive character and preserving those things and vision that the town found important. So our current comprehensive plan provides the balance to grow responsibly while retaining the town's uniqueness. And the vision statement on this slide provides the core values of the town, small town feeling, the values surrounding rural and pastoral character, proximity to economic centers, amenities and outdoor recreation, diverse economic opportunities, an authentic, vibrant downtown civic core, attractive residential neighborhoods, and abundant parks, open space, and connected trails. So section 3 of our comprehensive plan provides vision statements with goals and strategies. For those in the audience who aren't aware of how we arrived at the updated comprehensive plan in 2021, there was significant public input over 18 months, and more than 2,000 participants were active in the meetings and the surveys at that time. Current staff was not here, so previous staff and Administrator Kirk, they did lead this through the process. Some of you were part of that process, and the town trustees as well. And it's really nice to know that the Town of Berthoud Comprehensive Plan did win a state award through the American Planning Association in 2022 for the outstanding vision that is provided in the comprehensive plan. So all of those great accolades, where do we go? This particular project, it is approximately 34-acre project. It's east of Highway 287. It's approximately 1 mile south of Mountain Avenue and 1,300 feet west of South Berthoud Parkway. It is south and adjacent to the Ludlow annexation, or Legacy, as you all might know that development now. It's north of Riverside Farms, which is an unincorporated development in Larimer County, and it is west of Harvest Ridge. So the same developer who is making this proposal has done the development on the Harvest Ridge North and South that's just adjacent. So tonight, again, as Chair Smith indicated, there will be one presentation by staff. There are 3 motions included in your motion packet. The first will be annexation, then neighborhood master plan, and then zoning. And each will require that separate deliberation based on the criteria for approval. And the town trustees found that the petition was filed correctly at their meeting last week on May 13th. Now, this application was made 2 years ago, and the trustees found the petition to be filed correctly at that point in time. And the applicant just needed additional time to address. And, you know, I can't tell you why the time did lapse. However, Attorney Smith did indicate that I had to take it back through the process because of that lapse in time. So we're here tonight. And on this map, you can see there is an arrow that's going across the southern portion of this map. And there's a little blue circle there. It's not a lake, it's just outlined in blue. That is the approximate location of this project. And the future land use map does illustrate this as suburban residential, and that is exactly what the applicant is proposing. The large massive green, so through the town's comp plan process, again, while it's just a vision document, it is not legislative, it does inform decisions that are made. So this particular map is our current zoning map. So you can see that immediately to the east is residential 1 that preceded our current zoning districts of suburban and urban that we like to do, providing that mix. And then suburban residential is on the north side. So with that suburban residential, it is very compatible with all the surrounding land uses. And then this is our trails master plan. There are some limitations on the north side. You can see that a planned neighborhood trail is designated for the area on the north. There are some site limitations for that, and we can discuss those more with the preliminary plat. However, the applicant has illustrated trail going right through the middle of the property. So in essence, that intent of that trail has been met with the relocation of the trail. There's also a trail going along the west side of the property, as you can see on this slide, and the applicant has brought information to share with you in their presentation. So there are 81 lots, and out of those 81 lots, 5 of those are going to have a unique accessory dwelling unit feature. So the intent is that multi-generational housing with separate housing on each of those lots. And those are these lighter orange lots. And then you can see that the purple lots, or the dark bluish lots, are going to be alley-loaded single-family product. And the rest of the reddish colors are just going to be traditional single-family residence. So 3 neighborhood identity features were required. When the applicant originally did their subdivision to the east, these weren't requirements, and so now that they are expanding under the new code, these are requirements and they have accommodated that. So the annexation review criteria, let the record show that this is illustrated in detail. There are a lot of words on this slide, and those are also in your packets. This is the neighborhood master plan review criteria on the slide. And then the final criteria is that change of zone criteria. This is a summary slide that we can keep up for you. We can go back and forth and deliberate. Staff has found that the application materials for an annexation, a neighborhood master plan, and a change of zone do meet the intent of the comprehensive plan, the trails and open space master plan, our zoning code, as well as our land development code. More details will need to be fleshed out during that preliminary plat stage. However, from that concept view, staff finds that the applicant does meet the criteria for approval. And at that, this concludes my presentation. If you have any quick questions or any long questions at this time, I'm happy to answer those. And then I also know that the applicant is here to provide a presentation.
Any questions for staff? I do have one logistical question, which is whether we will have separate public hearings for each component or one.
That's a great question. I think you should probably have separate public hearings for each component, and we will note that and write it down, open, close, open, close.
Okay.
And I don't think you have to hold back on your voting for after each public hearing. You can have the public hearings open and closed for each agenda item and then vote all as one. I mean, you make 3 motions, but you don't have to. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I can't decide if it's one way or the other.
So you'd have the 3 public hearings
Yes.
all right
And then
sequentially.
all deliberation and voting.
Yes,
after.
yep,
That makes
thank
sense.
you. We're not telepathic yet, but really
We're
getting
getting there.
close.
Yeah, close.
All right.
Okay. Okay, additional questions for staff? Otherwise, I will invite the applicant to give a presentation if they wish.
So this is how you advance and that's how you reverse.
All right, hi, my name's Alex Hoyme. I'm with HT Land Partners and Tate & Associates. And I appreciate Chair Smith and the commissioners for hearing us tonight. And I also appreciate all the time you guys put into all these volunteer hours with, such an impact on the community. So thank you for that. So here to present our next phase, I guess, of Harvest that we're referring to as Harvest West. And as mentioned by Ann, we're seeking your recommendation approval on the annexation, rezoning, and neighborhood master plan. We've worked with staff extensively on all the details of this submittal and are excited to be presenting it to you tonight. As Ann pointed out, we align with the comprehensive plan, the future land use that was intended on the property. Also have the housing diversity, which not only do we have the housing diversity, but we have quite the architectural diversity with all the small local builders that we use. We have over a dozen small builders that work with us on the project, or have worked with us on our original project, and will continue into the next phases. And then we also are proud to say that this property ties in the history of the property. This was for over a century was a farm that was run by the Johnson family, and we've incorporated their names into the streets and kind of reference their history in different aspects of the development. As Ann presented, here's our neighborhood master plan. 3 different housing types with some looped roads, and actually the road up on the north there where Art Drive extends forms somewhat of a switchback, as there's quite a bit of grade drop across the property. So that loops through, and that'll be a part of our first phase, which will tie into Swan Peter Drive, which is the other stub that we have on the south side. We've got just under 35 acres with 81 lots. 5 of those will have 2 units on them with those 2 family lots. We're envisioning a multi-generational duplex type of lot where, and we're seeing a lot of this coming around, where whether it's mom and dad that need to, mom or dad, or mom and dad that need to come back and live with the kids, or you have kids that just never want to leave. There's a separate dwelling unit with the intention of supporting that multi-generational living space. And so we're excited to work with our developers and incorporate that into Harvest. I think it'll be a cool addition to what we've already established. We have our open space and pocket park requirements met. As Ann mentioned, we have the suburban residential zoning, which aligns with the preferred land use. We've got just under 2.5 dwelling units per acre on the density, and then, as Ann mentioned, we're providing stubs to the existing or the existing and future trails that will come through this area. So the property is contiguous with the town boundaries by about 50%. We're contiguous on the north with the Legacy Park and Ludlow property. And then we're contiguous on the east with our original Harvest development there. We're located in the town's GMA. We have adequate utility services. We've stubbed those utilities to this property with our development of Harvest Ridge North and South. We don't see any adverse impacts to the adjacent land uses. We're working, and I'll mention this in a later slide too, but we're working with the neighbors to our south and downstream farmers to make sure that the water that passes through this property continues to pass through at or above the level that they are now. And then we're consistent with that comp plan and future land use. So yeah, we do exceed the open space and park requirements as far as acreage goes. And then we have the required items that I'll mention later. Got the trail interconnection. And then our drainage plan, we maintain historic drainage basins, and our stormwater is managed so that, as we provide more paving on the site and more rooftops that would shed that flow off quicker, we have detention ponds that slow that flow from going downstream to prevent flooding of downstream landowners. And then we also have will serve letters from the utility providers that would serve us. This property is currently zoned as RR2 in the county, and we will be shifting that to suburban residential. Aligned with the land use map, continuation of the concept that was established in Harvest North and South, and then we're compatible with the surrounding land uses and the future land uses that are established in that preferred land use plan. As far as traffic and access concerns, we'll generate approximately 811 daily trips per the traffic impact study that we prepared, or that we had our consultant prepare. We have already installed turn lanes along South Berthoud Parkway that meet the needs of this additional traffic. So no further improvements on the turn lanes are required. We have worked with the town to further widen that and provide a section along our frontage to meet the intent of the corridor that will go through there with curb and gutter, and our trails already accommodate for the installation of that roadway. And then through the annexation agreement, we've agreed to contribute towards the stoplight at County Road 4E and 287 once that does become triggered with the surrounding projects. We see minimal impacts expected due to this being a continuation of the community that's already started. And then, I guess I mentioned this one with the annexation agreement incorporating the additional improvements. I had mentioned a little bit of this earlier. We actually met with, had a good meeting with Bill Johnson and Jim Brim. They're our neighbors to the south. Their irrigation feeds directly through our project. We worked with Bill Johnson on our Harvest North and South development to ensure he had an easement, and we actually installed a pipe to get his flow to his farm, improving the situation where he had to lay that pipe out every season and pull it away every fall. And so we've delivered that, or continue to deliver that flow to his farm. And as we move our development to the west, that further impacts the route to which Jim Brim was getting his flow. And so we have been working with him on a improved channel to direct flow to his corner, and that will also contribute towards getting Bill Johnson his flows as well. Yeah, on the stormwater, we have a system of curb and gutter, inlets and piping to deliver all the stormwater to the ponds. And then we will discharge at the existing rates after that detention occurs. So as I mentioned, we have a significant amount of architectural diversity with those different builders, and we also accommodate the housing diversity with those three different lot types. Here's a kind of a showing of our builders that we've worked with on the Harvest North and South. All these are Colorado companies, and most of them local to the northern Colorado area. And they, I feel, continue to build a great product out there. I don't know if who all's been able to drive through the site, but I feel we got a good looking development out there. And I think a big part of it is all the different architects that are involved with these custom builders and semi-custom builders to create that unlimited diversity, really. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we're compliant on our pocket park and open space per section 32-109. We've got an excess of open space by about a half acre, and also exceed the pocket park required acreage. And then we include our park with the required features of that B.2 in List A. And then we have picnic shelters, a playground, and larger play area, natural areas, grills, benches, parking. We exceed the buffer of the 30 feet that's required along 287. That's depicted on our plan. We also have a greenway, which is essentially a pathway that carries a trail of over 40 foot in width that has the central trail corridor passing through. And then we also have a trailhead with parking. In our subdivision identity, we have these 5 elements that meet the requirements there. Trails, pocket park, artwork, fencing, and the usable open space. Here's a layout of our trails and kind of the open space that's central to the project. As you can see, we have that central trail corridor that comes through the entire project all the way from the Port Trail on the east side that we installed with our Harvest North and South project. And then there's also the regional trail on the west side that we've stubbed up to the Ludlow property with the Legacy Park project and working with them on connections to those. And then here's an overall slide of the how the Harvest project will connect to Berthoud's trail system. With the Trails at Creekview development, they are with the installation of their improvements, that we have a pedestrian walkway that extends across Berthoud Parkway at the top of the hill there, and that will connect into their system of trails. And then we actually will own the property on the north of Trails at Creekview, and have been working with that developer to dedicate easements for trails and stormwater and utilities to get their project moving forward. Sounds like their project is coming to a point where they can kick it off here either this year or next. And so working with them towards their goals on that. And then through the Legacy Park project, there's a port trail that we're showing in that light blue color that connects up into Rose Farm. So as far as the public facilities and community benefits, one thing we really pride ourselves on is the No Metro District. I think you'll find it very rare for a developer to be presenting a project that does not have a metro district. I mean, there's reasons that developers propose those metro districts, but we try to keep things simplified enough to not need to have that financing tool there. We have HOA management of all the amenities. We work with the Larimer County Sheriff. We've installed flock safety cameras at our 2 points of entry and egress, and and another town is working with them kind of widespread across the town, and that has been a great resource, and I feel has eliminated a lot of issues that we had been seeing on the project beforehand. Due to the demographic of the buyers that we've seen coming into the area, we envision a total of 39 students contributing to the school district. And then, you know, we also pride ourselves in, through our projects, giving back to the community to various local funds. All right, so we are requesting recommendation of approval towards the town board for the annexation of our 34.61 acres into the town of Berthoud. Recommendation of approval on rezoning to suburban residential from the county's rural residential zoning, and then approval of the neighborhood master plan. And I'm here to answer any questions that you have. Hopefully we don't have anything as complex as the last round.
Questions for the applicant?
So along 287, are you proposing to put up like a barrier wall or something? Is there gonna be some type of sound barrier?
So we have over a 30-foot buffer that will have dense landscaping within, and then we are working towards, we haven't determined the exact type of fence yet, and the placement of that, just in working through the irrigation and the trail that'll pass through there. But between dense landscaping and or a fence, we will provide somewhat of a sound barrier in that respect. And we're also raising the grade of that frontage by quite a bit. It not only does it enhance how the drainage functions. Currently, the field out there is like less than 0.5%, so it's very flat, and that's intentional or beneficial for the ag purposes, so that when they flood irrigate, it has a chance to seep in and doesn't just run off. But we will be kind of cutting down the hill on the north side and building it up along 287 to also prevent excess noise from coming from 287.
Okay, and then you mentioned irrigation. Is the plan to have visible or whatever stream or waterways going through there, is that gonna remain visible, or is that something you're gonna bury?
So it's preferred by the farmers to have that in an open channel, just so they can, you know, view what's out there, get any clogs out, clean it out periodically. In certain circumstances, that's not allowed, passing under roadways or where the grade of the above land doesn't allow for that. And so we will have a combination of open channel and piped systems for that irrigation.
Is it Little Thompson, or is it?
No, it's a handy ditch flows through there, or the handy water flows through there, and it's the Sweck Lateral, which is actually a private handshake deal amongst a bunch of the farmers around that area. And, oh, sorry. Sorry about that.
So where exactly does that flow through? I mean, are you gonna make like a feature out of it, or is that just gonna kind of remain?
Yeah, so we're gonna work through that. We are looking to potentially have a feature made out of it, but the primary goal is to just make sure it functions and gets the farmers the flow that they need.
I mean, I can have trail along it, or?
There'll be a trail alongside the area where it passes, so it'll go through that greenway that we have kind of central to the, I guess I'm not up there anymore. I can show you. So that main green way through the middle of the area, we would pass it through there, and then on the 287 frontage, we'll be running an open channel along there, and we've debated between, Jim Brim's property will be served through that open channel as it is currently. We'll just be upgrading the existing one that's out there. And then Bill Johnson, we had previously served by a pipe going from where we connect to the adjacent Harvest Ridge Trail, where that note calls it out, kind of right in the middle of the plan. There's currently a 12-inch pipe that serves his irrigation. But we're looking at options now to run that in an open channel all the way to his property to prevent any excess need for maintenance on that pipe.
And there's no risk of that ever flooding or anything like that with the rain?
So the fun thing about this ditch is there's a variation of flow that comes down here. We're at the tail end of this lateral, and so there is variation in that flow, but we've taken accommodations both in installing weirs on stuff adjacent to the ditch where it would flow into our stormwater system in the case that it would exceed what the farmers had called for. And so then that passes into our detention pond and flows out after passing through our detention pond. And it flows into the stream that captures it ultimately anyway.
We're not creating any flooding issues or anything?
Nope. And we had worked through some of that excessive flow issues previously, and that has been addressed.
Am I correct in thinking that the only access to the west portion is through Harvest North and South?
Correct.
Okay, and how do you plan to manage the construction traffic for this part of the development?
Right, the similar way that we've managed the construction traffic on the original development, and it's, unfortunately, there is, sediment and tracking that occurs through that, but we push for all the developers to maintain their lots while we maintain the areas that we're under construction on. But yes, we will be using both Art and Swan Peter as our main access points for the development.
Can you show me where the handy ditch point out to?
Yeah, so it's, the swept lateral comes under 287, and so I can point up there, I know you. Here, does that show up on the screen? No. Yeah, so the swept lateral comes in right up there, and it flows, you can see the line work of where that ditch is.
Okay, so that's the flow of the ditch, and it's an open ditch.
It is open ditch, yes, and we've lined it, but it is, it flows in an open ditch down there currently, and in order to prevent seepage, we put a EPDM or kind of rubberized liner there to ensure all that flow passes through.
Okay. Where does it go underground?
Right, so it goes under at the trail, and essentially follows this trail right here, and then it goes under the under Berthoud Parkway, pops up out there, and then there's a bit of a restriction as it goes to the north, and then there's also an existing pond on the Trails at Creekview property where that flow also overflows into if the smaller pipe that goes north is unable to handle it. And so, we'll have to continue working on ensuring that gets properly bypassed when the Trails at Creekview project comes through.
So does that water feed the farms to the south as well?
Yeah, so the swept lateral actually siphons underneath 287. And these two farms right here are the ones that are served by that lateral. Jim here will have his flow come along 287 just as it has historically, and then Bill we will size the channel to have that come down and either cut across through the greenway, or the current design option that we're leaning more towards is to have it run along the far south end of the property to keep it in an open channel and not have to put it in a pipe. Now, we have the flexibility to do that with this adjacent property.
So where that waterway is, it goes through all those lots, right? Are those lots?
Yeah, everything. that's
No,
in the blue.
farther up
Yeah, the
on the
current-
north
the
end
current-
there.
The current stream or flow.
Yeah, where you
ditch or
have-
whatever.
Yeah, the ditch, where the ditch currently goes is going through lots. And so that ditch is being eliminated, and the channel and the pipe system will redirect that flow.
Okay, so it's not gonna be exposed as,
Right, yeah, we're not exposing it. That's that line work that you see there, that's the existing alignment, but we are doing away with that and rerouting that irrigation.
okay, yeah, that was my question. Okay,
Staff, I see in the neighborhood master plan, suggested motions that there was a condition for approval of the neighborhood master plan regarding some of the irrigation items. Does this cover what you're referencing?
Thank you, Chair Smith. So, right before the town trustees meeting last week to accept the petition or not, the neighbor Jim Brem did send an email, and it is in your packet tonight. Staff determined that it was not an appropriate item to talk about, just talking about the petition, because it really was more of a development question. Mr. Hoyme has discussed and has shared with staff that a lot of the concerns that Mr. Brem, he feels have been addressed. And so we would just like there to be a condition of approval that with the preliminary plat submittal, that Mr. Brem's concerns are adequately addressed. And definitely Mr. Brem can take a look at the preliminary plat, make comments on that at that time, but I have confidence that Mr. Hoyme can get those issues addressed. So I would like there to be a condition of approval, though, that just indicates that these need to be addressed with the submittal of the preliminary plat.
While you're there, accessory dwelling units, so I know 5 of the lots are gonna have that. I'm just
Can I-
curious about a couple of different things. Are they allowed to be fully independent, kitchens, everything, completely separate units?
So on 5 of the lots, and Mr. Hoyme can give you an idea, they're going to be a little bit different. Our accessory dwelling units can only be a certain size. He may want to vary on that size for those 5 lots. And so he has a unique vision for how those multi-generational lots will look. And so I would like to open it up to him to explain what those will look like.
Perfect. Let me just go, I was kind of curious about whether they could be fully, I know some places have limits that they can't have a kitchen, some can.
They may
Was there
look
any
separate
size, I was gonna ask about size limitations, setbacks, anything like that that would deviate from the normal zoning standards as far as that, and then rentals. So it's, how does an accessory, will they be able to be rented independent from the person who lives on the main site, either long-term or short-term? Where do they fall under, like an Airbnb or something like that?
Right, so we do have short-term rental regulations. And so if they would want to be a short-term rental, number one, the homeowners association would have to approve that type of use. And that there is a short-term rental application process that will have to be adhered to. And there are some separation requirements. So not every unit in that neighborhood, if the homeowners association allowed a short-term rental, would be able to utilize one of those as a rental. But those are separately contained dwelling units. With that ADU, they have to meet setback requirements. Right now, we have size restrictions. However, with this, the applicant might want to exceed those size restrictions with this unique product that they are developing. In essence, they are like a duplex. However, the intent that's been explained to staff is that they are multi-generational and really for that homeowner to utilize as Mr. Hoytney indicated before.
So maybe, Mr. Hoyt, you could tell us
Yes,
how you
sure.
plan to address that in the HOAs and,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
will
I
you
would-
allow rentals, et cetera? and how-
Right, yeah, and
Thank
so, the way the current HOA is set up, and we're proposing to, the existing HOA that we take on this Harvest West as part of, the HOA and have it be a unified community. And with these lots, I would look at it more as a, you know, how you look at a duplex, where it wouldn't be considered an ADU. If we wanted to add ADUs, we could do that on the single-family lots. This is a two-family lot, and so they would each have their own separate, you know, living space, and there wouldn't be any size restrictions on that second unit on the lot. And with that being the purpose of the two-family lot.
Sorry, is it attached
It will be attached, yes.
With a common wall.
Right,
and sold as one lot?
right.
How big are those lots?
Those lots are around a half an acre.
So they've been chosen specifically for their size?
Yes, yeah, we picked corner lots that would work well with that.
So would they have like
Use.
their own garages as well, so it would really be more like a duplex?
Yes, yeah, I would envision, and, you know, it falls a lot on the builder to design what what they feel will best sell. But I would envision the garage, you know, separating the two spaces with that firewall in between. And so you would have, in a lot of cases, I think a shared driveway that would go to those two separate garage spaces.
So will the HOA have any special restrictions that they cannot be for outside rentals, or
Yeah,
will
we-
you just be following?
So the
village's
rentals are
standard?
currently allowed within the HOA if
Okay.
somebody owns their house and say they have to move, or say they have to.
Long-term.
Yeah,
Well, I was gonna say,
yes.
what about like short-term Airbnb,
I
weekly rentals,
don't know
things
that
like
we
that?
have anything written in on the short term. When we established the HOA, that wasn't as much of a hot topic. And so we would evaluate that and kind of work with the town on making sure any of the short-term rental requirements would be met. If that is something that the board would decide to, or the HOA board would decide to incorporate into the changes in the HOA guidelines.
Anton would be our resident expert on.
Yeah.
Okay, and yeah, I would love to work
So-
with.
And I think
Tom or
it came
anyone
up
on-
since they don't consider applications from developments whose HOAs don't allow short-term.
So let me just be clear on this. These really aren't accessory dwellings.
Correct,
These
yeah,
are
I would not
duplexes.
refer to it as an accessory dwelling at all. As it was pointed out in the review process, an accessory dwelling would be allowed on a single-family lot. And that isn't the intent here. We don't want to be restricted as far as how that kitchen can be or how the size of the unit would be. And so, you know, you could have a 2,000 square foot space right adjacent to another 2,000 square foot space. And so it's more like a duplex with the two-family lot designation. And,
In the sense that it does sort of seem to circumvent a lot of what the ADU regulations are trying to accomplish.
so I think that's, well, I guess I don't need to put my thoughts out there as much, but I think the town is looking for housing diversity and the ability to cater to more different types of families and really I think there's a growing need for that additional unit, and the ADU restrictions we feel don't fully allow you know, that additional multi-generational space to occur, and this is a trend that's happening. It's a growing trend, I guess, and it's due to the cost of housing, and so this is a way for a family to continue to live together, but really have their own separate space and not be all over each other.
These are a single address, so this isn't like unit A and unit B, and they actually have, you can go back and forth between the two units.
No, there would be no connection
Completely
between the two
Yeah.
units would be the concept.
But they're two separate addresses or one address?
I would envision them as two separate addresses, but I guess not. And so, yeah, we'll work with town staff to kind of finalize our vision.
Even for emergencies, if there's no connection, wouldn't you have to have separate addresses?
I would see it
So
just
that
as a
you'd know if somebody called 911, which unit they're calling from?
Well, because it's on one property, so we have to remember that the duplex, that they cannot be sold as individual units. So there will be two homes on one property, and so most likely the homeowner of unit A, or whatever you're gonna call it, will be renting out to unit B, whether it is an in-kind rent to a family member, or they might be looking at this as rental income. And again, there would be that short-term rental issue that would have to be worked through, or it could be long-term rental, and it's on 5 lots. And it is something very different than the town even truly has in our code, unless you look at it as a duplex. A normal duplex would have a separate lot line, that it would create a saleable, 2 saleable units. However, the developer's approaching this a little bit differently, so we'll see how it goes.
And so there's no way to, I'm just projecting, because you could have condos on a single lot, right? And there wouldn't be able to do that at any point. I mean, again, separate entrances, separate garage, there'd be no way to divide that in the future so that they wouldn't be sold
Right,
separately?
well, a condo is a little different because it's in one building usually, and you can sell the sticks. But, and with and not the land. So this, we're not anticipating this to be a condominiumized residence.
One title, one deed.
Yeah, one deed, one property, one structure, but within that one structure, it's a duplex or a paired home. However, it's under common ownership of one individual versus ownership of 2 individuals. So we will work through the addressing thing. I don't think that's a deal killer for this. But normally, one property has one address. And it does create confusion with Larimer County Emergency Management and the post office when you have one legal parcel with 2 separate addresses. So we'll just have to work through that after final plat. But I don't see that as an insurmountable deal killer at all.
Has the applicant, have you seen builders doing this other places? Is this like a novel concept?
No, I mean, I just read an article this morning on it where it's becoming a growing thing. And there's other communities that are doing it with the accessory dwelling regulations. And you can tell that it's kind of a forced, they're restrained by those accessory dwelling requirements. And so this allows more flexibility on creating 2 spaces.
It does both. They have ADUs, and then they also have these multi-generational homes, and they have their own entrance, but it's one address.
Erie,
Yeah, and our builders are also very excited about it. That they see it as something that is needed, and things that they've had situations in the past where they've wanted to do something like this, but due to the zoning of the lot or whichever, it hasn't been possible. And so I think Harvest is a really good place to try it out for the town, just with how we've, or just kind of with the demographic that we have brought in.
I think it's a great idea and diverse housing.
Yeah, we want to be creative and kind of cater to that need.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for providing the narrative with your application. That's helpful in context for the. Okay, thank you very much. We'll now move on to the public hearing portion of this land use item. As discussed, we will be doing 3 public hearings separately, and so we will start with the Harvest West annexation public hearing. So if you would like to provide comment on the annexation, the public hearing is now open. anyone signed up, assuming there's no one on Zoom. Okay, and so since there's no one coming forward, I will close the public hearing for the Harvest West annexation. The second item as a part of this application is the neighborhood master plan for Harvest West. So I will now open the public hearing for the Harvest West neighborhood master plan. Seeing no one. No one on Zoom. Okay, I will now close the public hearing. And one final time, we have the neighborhood master plan. So I'll now open the public hearing for the neighborhood master plan. And no takers once more. Okay, so we'll now close the public hearing for the neighborhood master plan. And we will deliberate as a commission on the 3 requests.
Was that last one on the rezoning?
Or sorry,
Yeah.
Sorry.
rezoning. Maybe I did it twice. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I think-
Okay, so should I do it again?
I think you could just say that. And let the record show, Chair Smith, that the third item that you discussed was rezoning and not a duplicate of the neighborhood master plan.
Thank you.
There we go.
Thank you. Getting late. Okay,
We're gonna go through the requirements.
yes, so if possible, was there a slide that had the criteria for the annexation?
So this slide is a conglomeration, it's a reduced version, paraphrased version of the criteria for each of the 3 items.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any questions or comments to start the deliberation?
All referral agencies have commented.
Yep, there have been no referral agencies that have any remaining comments
Okay.
regarding the annexation.
Okay, thank you. I think that's a standard from now on. And then I do have a question. So, which one are we doing here? This is for, so, on the traffic plan, the road, South Berthoud Parkway, this road shall be improved to a major collector status as outlined in the annexation agreement. I might be getting ahead of myself, but what does that mean? Is anyone can tell me, that'd be great.
Let me make a clarification there, and this has been clarified through the review process. It's upgraded to a minor collector. And essentially, the town has different roadway sections that they have in their guidelines, and the minor collector is what's designated on their traffic plan or kind of their traffic master plan. And so we would be widening the road and putting in curb and gutter along the frontage that would build out that section on our frontage.
Okay, so like a turn lane or just?
Just widening the road to the full width that the town has designated for it.
Okay. Okay.
And I'm checking the annexation agreement right now.
Yeah, that was one of the items that was a.
But this isn't adjacent to Berthoud Parkway.
So.
So you're, because it's,
Yeah, there
was
were-
that done with the
we're being-
first phase?
We're being required to widen what's adjacent to our prior development.
Gotcha, okay, thank you.
But it's not a 4-lane, it's just wider.
Correct.
And there's no curb and gutter currently.
Right, yep, yeah, it's
Clear
all.
like Spartan maybe, I don't.
Right, yeah, where Rose Farm is on the, just on that corner, they put in curb and gutter there, but as you move, let's see, I think it's south of Bluebell, which is the road south of Spartan, so going south of Bluebell, that is all just edge of asphalt to grass, or shoulder.
Then the widening would accommodate obviously better drainage, and obviously, one of the issues on that road is there's no bike lane at all.
Right. Yeah,
There's
and-
no sidewalk to ride on or anything like that.
Sure, and yeah, when placing turn lanes on a county road that's constructed as it was, it ends up widening the road and then it brings the road back together. And so there would be this center turn lane that would kind of, think of it as turning on and off, that would allow the through lanes to continue straight and not have to merge as those turn lanes come on.
It is a major collector in the annexation agreement.
Yeah,
The annexation agreement that you signed.
sure.
Again, does
I
that
guess-
change? I guess I'm just asking what those requirements are.
And yeah, I guess that provides further conflicts with the access that was provided by Trails at Creekview, and it doesn't align with the overall plan. So I'm not sure how it got back to a major collector, but maybe that's something we can evaluate.
But in any case, a major collector would have curb and gutter, tree lawn, sidewalk.
And a minor collector?
Similar, yeah.
Okay.
Just not as wide.
Yeah, it might be a right of way width difference
You know,
only,
and
or-
I think I need to apologize. I think that the discrepancy was between major collector and minor arterial. So, yeah, it's been so long that I misthought.
That's okay, that's all right.
Yeah, I was just curious to know what that was.
Are those improvements, is your development paying a portion of those, or your development carrying that burden in front of your development?
Right, the frontage of, or as I understand, the frontage of our development will need to be widened to that full section of that.
And then the Legacy Park or Ridge, whatever the low, you know, then they would be responsible for their frontage to do. It's not like a traffic light where you all chip in.
Where is the traffic light? will be?
County Road 4E and 287.
But this alone doesn't trigger that.
This alone does not. It would be the adjacent development to the east that it has many more units.
Okay, on 287, so the one coming from Burton Parkway, when 287 goes down from north to south. Okay, but there was also a traffic light to put on Burton Parkway, if I remember, or am I confusing? No? Okay, all right, that can happen.
But this development, this annexation and this neighborhood master plan does then kick in the improvements to Berthoud Parkway where your first phase of this did not, is that correct?
I think it's a requirement that the current staff would require, whereas the prior staff did not.
There's more to that than what I have information on. I think that, the original should have been done and it was not. And so some of the staff members that have been here longer than current and planning staff, they just said that it needed to be done and the developer accepted that obligation.
Yeah, I didn't know if it had to do with the volume, that this, it didn't need it, but once you added this, it did, or it was.
The turn lanes, yeah, the turn lane requirements were met with what we have. It's just, yeah, an
So
additional.
it's there already, it's already implemented.
Right, yeah, we installed 2 full turn lanes with,
6 months ago, 9 months ago, yeah.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other points, other questions?
Yeah, I got another.
Yep.
Probably read too much. There was a comment made on number 3. I think it was a third one. preliminary traffic open space about State Highway 287, and it says the existing access shall be closed. What does that mean?
There is an access, Commissioner Semidalus, there is an access currently to the property on Highway 287. And so that access needs to be closed.
Yeah, towards the northwest corner there, you can see the gravel access. It's an access that was for the irrigation ditch. And so, and we're providing access along that irrigation ditch. And so the need for that, that access to 287 would go away.
Okay, yeah, I didn't see that. I was looking, I'm like, I drove by there a million times. I'm like, where's that access?
It's not a commonly used access. It's just a little,
Okay.
little gravel road off to the side.
Got it. Thank you. I think that's all I really had.
Go back to the summary of the key points here.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
We'll focus on the annexation first, and the criteria include annexation being a discretionary act that the town trustees determine interest in. The annexation is in conformance with goals, policies, strategies of the comprehensive plan and the future land use map. I will read all of them, and if anyone has concerns, we can discuss them then. The developer shall design, engineer, and install public facilities and amenities necessary to serve the proposed development. The applicant shall pay fees necessary to process the application. Annexed areas will not typically divide tracts of land to prevent further annexation of adjoining parcels, and the annexation application requirements were followed. Do we feel that the application meets these 6 criteria for annexation?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, then I would entertain a motion.
I'd move to make a recommendation of the town trustees to approve the request for annexation. Staff has concluded the annexation meets the criteria for approval found in section 30-8-104 of the municipal code as discussed in the staff report, and also concluded the property is within the town's 3-mile plan and urban growth boundary. And the process found in the municipal code section 30-8-104 has been followed. The approval of the annexation shall be conditioned upon completion of the annexation agreement.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
And we will take roll.
Chair Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Brody,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
Commissioner Pond,
Yes.
Commissioner Semidalus,
Yes.
and then Commissioner Sigmund.
Yes.
Okay, and motion passes. Thank you. Okay, the next component of this request is the neighborhood master plan. So we can begin deliberation regarding the criteria for the neighborhood master plan. Is there anyone that has any comments or questions before we criteria?
Yeah.
At least the lights haven't gone off yet. No? Okay, then I will read the criteria for our assessment. A preliminary traffic plan and study shall illustrate street connection, access, road classification, on and off-site improvements. An open space plan has been submitted to illustrate requirements for spaces and buffer areas. Parks plan illustrating types and acreage of parks, pedestrian connectivity, zoning conformance of lot diversity requirements, overall utility plan submitted, and subdivision identity standards met. Do we feel that these 7 criteria have been met for the approval of the neighborhood master plan?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, then I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion. I move to make the recommendation to the town trustees to approve the request for neighborhood master plan. Staff's recommendation is based on the findings outlined in the staff report and deliberated that the criteria for approval found in section 30-6-106 of the municipal code has been met and outlined in the staff report. I move to, there's a condition here that I think we need to put on it as well. I move to include the following condition of approval. The shall address concerns expressed by adjacent property owner Jim Brem, as expressed in an email dated May 13, 2025, as a submittal item for the preliminary plan application.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We'll now take a roll.
Chair Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Brody,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
Commissioner Pond,
Yes.
Commissioner Semendowis,
Yes.
and Commissioner Sigmund.
Yes.
Motion passes. Great, thank you. Now, the final aspect of this application is the rezoning. And is it correct that one of these conditions need to be met for approval?
That is correct.
Okay, so I think as a commission, we can determine which of these is the most appropriate if it is met. So the options being to correct an error, to rezone an area due to changing conditions, previous zoning was in error or inconsistent, rezone for a community-related use, the area requested for rezoning has changed or is changing to such a degree that it is in public interest to encourage development or redevelopment of the area. Could staff please clarify the definition of community-related use?
Right, that would be, let's say, a town park was on land that's zoned transitional, and we want to rezone that to a classification that we can put a park on it. So staff believes that item 2 might be the most appropriate because the changing conditions are an annexation and bringing a property into the town of Bergen.
So number 2 would be the appropriate one. And what, how about 5? So did I just want to
That's a
understand.
good question, yeah.
I just want to understand here. I mean, I agree with you, but, okay, tell me.
2 or 5, I think
2 or
that
5,
they're,
okay.
I think they could both work. I
Okay.
just went to 2 because it was shorter.
Yeah,
I like that.
You pre-digest the work for us, and thank you for that.
Yes.
Okay. So if we have agreement that the application meets criteria 2 for rezoning, I would entertain a motion.
I move to make a recommendation to the Town of Trustees to approve the request for a zoning request to SR Suburban Residential in accordance with the 2021 Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Map. The process for approval found in Municipal Code Section 30-3-110 and the criteria for approval found in Section 30-3-110-D or .D of the municipal code as discussed in the staff report.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I'll take a roll.
Chair Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Brody,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
Commissioner Pond,
Yes.
Commissioner Semendowis,
Yes.
Commissioner Sigmund.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. Thank you, commissioners, and thank you to the applicant.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, the land use application portion of our meeting is now concluded, and we will have an opportunity for staff reports. Director Johnson is engaged. Is there anything you'd like to report, or would you like a moment?
No,
Okay.
Chair Smith, thank you very much. So the next planning commission will be on June 12th, and there will be a public hearing for land development and an update on the land use code amendments. And I have my little sticky note here that we need 4 for quorum, and we have 5 that have indicated that they will be here. So barring any emergencies, it looks like we will have quorum for June 12th. And then on June 26th, there will be a public hearing for land development and update on land use code amendments as well. Again, we need 4 quorum, and 6 have indicated that they will be here. So thank you very much. Town board outcomes, the natural healing section of the town code was approved by the trustees on second reading last week on May 13th. And also that their trustee Chris Kurtz did resign. So there is an opening on the town board of trustees. It would be for a limited time during his, to fulfill, I think it's to the next election, which would be April. So as much as it pains me to let you all know that Planning Commission is a wonderful opportunity to really get involved and understand what is happening in your community. While the trustees, land use is just a portion of what they review and what they discuss, I do believe that the interaction with the public that you do is a great launching pad. And as much as I would miss any of you on the town trustees, it would be an honor to work with you and the rest of the community development department in that role. So I'm sure you all got notice about that. Bella? Is that about Bella?
And I think I may have mentioned this in the last planning commission, but we do have a new planner and she starts on Tuesday, so it's officially here. So Bella Monzo is her name, and we're excited to have her.
Should have let her
Come to this meeting, break her in.
There will be more in June.
another warm body.
I know you guys are working on code amendments. As we were looking at the rezoning, it almost seems like there should be one that says you're rezoning it because you're changing the land to be in compliance with the comprehensive plan. I mean, it would seem like that would be your rationale. If the town has said we want it this way, I don't know if that's something you'd want to think about adding as a criteria, because otherwise we're trying to wedge it in one of these others that.
For sure. Take a look.
Any updates from commissioners? Well, with
Just
that,
that I mean, we are deciding here and we receive a lot of documents. I really appreciate the way it's prepared for us. And I guess it's a lot of work in the background that we don't see. And honestly, I mean, it's a pleasure to come here and just have to decide. And also have all the information and advices. Honestly, it's an easy position to be here, not in your seat.
Can I ask a question? A procedural one. When twice, at least since I've been here, when there's a very last minute legal something or other that happens, it seems like we go through a couple hours of looking at it and then we come to the same conclusion. We just don't know enough to know what we don't know, and then we do that. And you probably, on your end, can't cancel a submittal late, and so it kind of has to go through this process, or how does that work?
yeah, like once it's been noticed, we
Yeah.
have a hearing.
Right, so it depends on the magnitude of the item that's presented to us. So on Tuesday after work, the letter that you received from the Ryan Bond's attorney was received. So staff, both of us and other members of staff, worked almost all day and shifted our schedules around all day Wednesday, all day today, working this situation out with Mr. Bond, speaking with our Administrator Kirk, as well as staff working with the applicant to try to, can something work out to address the concerns raised. So when a resolution can be made to still try to move the project forward, we do present it because it's important to hear from, Mr. Bond and his counsel. It's important to hear from surrounding property owners because those items could influence your decision. And however, if there wasn't a resolution that could be met, then that's a completely different subject. So let's say the resolution couldn't be met, then staff probably would have come to you and requested a continuance, and we would have made sure that the applicant was okay with that continuance from the get-go. But as it was tonight, there really truly were 4 options for you all to consider because they wanted to proceed forward with the land use hearing tonight. We did give them the option to continue. However, it was their choice to come forward tonight. So sometimes those decisions, we may recommend something, however, they make the decision that they want to proceed forward at their risk.
Well, and I think when that does come back, again, giving them time to settle this, get more answers, like we don't have to pound all that ground again, like we should be able to get through it pretty quickly the next time, unless it's changed significantly, but I think they just need to settle out and make sure you're comfortable with what this easement's gonna look like or access, yeah.
And it is, it's a disservice to staff as well as a disservice to you all and a disservice to the developer and others because they're quickly trying to make these decisions where we need to make sure there aren't any easements or there aren't any concerns with that location and does this work and what are those long-term implications of doing this? And I would truly hope that Mr. Bond would get his application in because if his application would have been submitted by now, we would have that data in order to analyze and make data-driven decisions on this situation. And unfortunately, we have the chicken before the egg or the egg before the chicken on this scenario that really put the developers of Farmstead Acres at a disadvantage of not knowing what they're accommodating.
But I'm not really sure why they were accommodating what they were doing. That's the weird thing about it, because I didn't, I wanted to keep moving forward for their sake, but yet they made a decision there that is causing us to delay. So, yeah.
And so if there are no other reports from commissioners, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Who seconded? Bond?
Thank you.